Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's 7 o'clock, it's Friday, it's the 15th of May, and we are once again, ladies and gentlemen, in the grip of what can only be described as an ungovernable country. We don't know who's in charge, we don't know who's doing anything, we don't know who's running anything, we don't know who to go and ask a question of. If you were to say that famous cartoon I've mentioned many times when John Major was having his problems with his various different backbenchers, when an alien arrives in Downing Street and he gets out of the spaceship and he says, "Take me to your leader," and they go, "We're terribly sorry, we haven't got one at the moment," because we haven't. We really haven't. Now, I've got to pronounce this right because we've just learned a new way of pronouncing Lee's name. It's Lee Nalalingam, right?
There we go. Yes, bit
He
of a
said
mouthful.
yes. What do you mean no? Isn't it? Nalalingam is it, isn't it?
Nalalingam, that's right.
Nalalingam.
Yeah.
There you go, that'll do. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you
Friday
again.
the 15th of May. Who knew this week would be quite so tumultuous as it has been? Yesterday, and the papers all recognise it, Wes Streeting kind of fires the starting gun and he might as well have shot himself in the head. Because he finally, the starting gun went and then suddenly he resigned as Secretary of State for Health, walked out of Downing Street, and no sooner had he done that than everybody sort of forgot about him because suddenly Andy Burnham was going to run.
That's pretty much it, right, Mike? This is the problem with the Labour Party.
Yeah.
There's not a single leader amongst them.
No.
They don't have any balls, for lack of a better word, to actually... He sat there, he dithered the entire week debating, do I resign? I'm going to resign. I'm thinking about resigning. I might have the numbers. I don't have the numbers. But it turns out he didn't. Apparently only 44 of them were backing him anyway.
Yes.
And he basically backed himself into a corner. He had no choice but to resign to save face.
Yeah,
and
because if he hadn't resigned by that time, it would have been like, you'd have been even more of a lame duck, wouldn't he? You'd have been a sort of lame duck member of the cabinet because he didn't have the cojones to do anything.
And I would have loved to have seen Starmer fire him on Tuesday.
Yes.
Because why wouldn't you? He sat there the entire week basically saying, "Boss, I'm going to come and knock on your door later this week and tell you where to go.
Right.
And I want your job."
Yes.
It's out the door, mate. See
Also,
you
I
later.
think there's a kind of reluctant admiration in a way by some people for Starmer. And I don't mean to say that I've gone like Pooch did the other day, over to the other side. Because when he appeared in Parliament the other day, suddenly he was all charming and he was this guy who had a sense of humour and he was kind of, quite with it. And Pooch was saying, "Oh, well, if he'd been like this guy all along, maybe people would have actually liked him." I still think that's a bit of an act. But I think also the thing that I think did him a favour was when Streeting went into the cabinet meeting, in which they were all supposed to tell Starmer, to get out. And he basically said, "Sorry, that's not on the agenda. Come and see me later." And then he disappeared, which is a great managerial technique where I've worked for people who have done that before, where they'd go, "Come and see me after the show." And then you go to their office and they weren't there. And you'd go, and so people have seen Starmer, I think, in a slightly different light. As much as everybody who's listening to the show and watching it hates him, right, and wants him out, he has shown himself to be pretty resilient. And he's shown himself to be someone who knows his way around the inside of Downing Street to the point where he's making all the others look a bit stupid.
Yep, fully agree. And it's that thing, right? Everyone loves an underdog as well.
Yes.
So this new ruthless streak where he's just desperately trying to cling on, it's actually great entertainment as well.
Yeah.
I'd love to see him go the whole way now and just turn around and go to Burnham, "You're not standing, mate. No. I'm not going to sign it. You're stuck there as mayor. Tough. I told you, I'm Prime Minister."
Yeah.
And let's see where
Come
that
and have
gets
a
us.
go if you think you're hard enough.
Exactly that. That speaks to the West Ham fan in me.
Yeah.
And
Sorry about that.
Tell me about it. Oh, don't.
Yeah, we don't even want to talk about that.
I still can't talk about it.
By the way, speaking of football, and I know we don't speak about football much, I was reading just on the way in this morning about this Southampton story. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
About where they've been accused of having a guy hiding behind a tree, filming Middlesbrough's training techniques.
Do we know where Mark Littlewood was at the time?
I suspect it was him.
It could be
because,
him.
he's quite often ducking and diving all over the place, he's not, so you never know. But a couple of good tweets that came out last night. One from Dan Hodges, which is just ahead of the first clip I think we'll play. Nothing tells you more about Keir Starmer's politics than this. He blocked Andy Burnham from Gorton because he wanted to save his own skin. Now he's letting him run in Makerfield to try and save his own skin. We can't risk reform winning Manchester. We can't afford the cost of a by-election. All self-serving crap. And what happened in the interim, Polanski and the Greens smashed through Labour's left flank and Nigel Farage and Reform came bulldozing through on the right.
Yep.
So, you know, as much as, well, I'm certainly not going to sit here and praise Keir Starmer because he's not that clever. But have a look at this. This is Douglas Alexander, who's Secretary of State for Scotland, universally despised by everybody, not only in England, but also in Scotland. He was the mastermind of the useless campaign run by Anna Sarwar, who's now also looking like he's going to lose his seat or lose his position as leader of the Scottish Labour Party. But Douglas Alexander single-handedly wrecking Labour from the inside. Should we have a look at that, Pooch?
Douglas, does the Prime Minister have any objection to the NEC allowing Andy Burnham to stand in that Makerfield by-election?
My understanding is the leadership is not going to try and block Andy Burnham. I think that's the right judgment. I think it's a judgment that will be welcomed across the Labour Party. So Andy
Why didn't you
will
make
be
that
able
judgment before then?
So Andy will be able to take his chances along with anyone else who chooses to put themselves forward for selection. It will then move to the constituency Labour Party's choice and then ultimately the population within the constituency.
Yeah, so, I mean, see if you can make any sense out of all that, right? So basically, they block him from running in Gorton and Denton, which might have actually won them the seat, maybe. Or maybe not. I mean, you know, this new seat that he's going to stand in, he may not win either.
He's got no chance in that seat, in my opinion.
Right.
I can see him getting absolutely ruined by reform. They voted, I thought, was it 24 of 25 seats, I think it was?
Yes.
Went to reform in the elections last week.
Yeah.
It's desperation. I understand Burnham's logic. Burnham's logic is that if he can win there, he can turn around and say, look, I'm the only politician in Labour that can beat reform. But I think he's in for a rude awakening because they haven't realised we don't not just not like Starmer. We don't like any of them.
No.
We don't want Rayner. We don't want Lammy.
No.
We don't want Cooper. We don't want Mahmood. We don't want any of them.
That's a very good point at which we can announce our polls. We've done a very straight poll today because we just actually quite like to know who you would actually prefer to be Prime Minister. Is it Keir Starmer? Is it Wes Streeting? Is it Andy Burnham? Or is it Angela Rayner, who at the moment is actually coming in slightly higher than Andy Burnham, who's coming last. Wes Streeting at 36%. Keir Starmer at 33%, Andy Burnham at 14%, and Angela Rayner at 16%. The problem with Andy Burnham, right, is that this kind of myth that he's the king of the north is, first of all, not true. I know loads of people who live in and around Manchester, all of whom say, nobody likes Andy Burnham. They all think he's a bit of a wally. And how ridiculous, have you seen this? That the Labour suggestion for who should replace him as Mayor of Manchester, you know who it is?
No.
Gary Neville.
Yeah.
Gary Neville. And you're going... Have you lost the plot altogether? Because first of all, the one thing that anybody who knows about football knows is if you're a Manchester City fan, you're not going to vote for Gary Neville.
No.
And unless you're a Man United fan, even Man United fans don't like him very much because he's such a wally. And he's so stuck up. His famous rant about, you know, middle-aged white men causing all the problems and all of that. He's a champagne socialist. He's a snob. You know, how do they find... how do they select these people? They must be so out of touch with the common man.
They are so out of touch. They're stuck in that little bubble. It's something that unfortunately affects almost all of the political spectrum, to be fair. But they all get together in their little dinner parties and, you work for Manchester.
That Gary Neville chap,
he's from Manchester,
he's in
right?
Manchester, isn't he? Oh, yeah, they like him.
Yeah, they must
he's
like him.
He's a footballer.
Yeah.
And they don't get it, do they?
Yeah, the hundreds of thousands of working class fans who he just called racist.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to vote for him. They haven't got a clue.
No, they really haven't. And interestingly enough, and this was from Andrew Neil last night, he managed to dig out, there's always a tweet, as they say, from 2022, 13th of July, this is from Andy Burnham, talking about the Tories and their leadership challenges, right? He says, we need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. They were all elected on a manifesto promise to level up the North and are all abandoning it. So as far as he's concerned, if you change the leader and you change the Prime Minister, you should throw it to the public to have a general election.
I fully agree with that. Might be the only time I agree with Andy Burnham, but I wish that was the rule. My personal opinion is if you are Prime Minister and you resign or get replaced, there should be a general election. It shouldn't be up for debate. At the same time, if you're a politician and you switch party, or, there should be a by-election. I don't care which party, who you support. They've all forgot they work for us.
They're all guilty of that, though, aren't they? Because every single party says when they're not in charge, we should have a by-election because you're changing the MP. And then as soon as it happens to them, oh, no, we don't want to spend that kind of money. Absolutely ridiculous. Joffrey says, none of the above, stupid survey.
Ridiculous.
I mean, well, how is it a stupid survey, Joffrey? You get pedant of the day for that. Does he get it? It's an early shout for pedant of the day. Only 7:10. 10 minutes into the show.
7:10.
How is it a stupid? Please explain why you think it's a stupid survey. And maybe on the day that people are deciding who should be the Prime Minister of this country, we might want to ask the people themselves who they would like to have. You can, of course, come up with a different survey if you like, and then we'll see whether you're cleverer than we are. What do you think?
I reckon Joffrey thinks it's stupid because he wants to vote for Diane Abbott.
Do you think?
I think
it's
so.
very possible.
That can be the only logic.
I mean, most of the people who want to vote for Diane Abbott can't actually write English, but I mean, that's another story.
Gary Neville's not popular.
And Gary Neville is definitely not popular, says Chris. I'm not reading that out. But I mean, but imagine the some mindset of anyone who would think that running Gary Neville in a political position would be a good idea for anything.
Well, again, it's just that cult of celebrity.
It's like
and
box
the complete
ticking, isn't it?
understanding. It is box ticking. It's the same thing when I saw, I like Derek Chisora, but I saw stories at one point of him running for London Mayor.
Yeah.
Like, well, look, he's a great boxer. I love him as a personality.
Yeah, nice
I love
guy.
him as a Londoner,
Yeah.
but no, London Mayor, no.
Exactly.
We
I know.
need to get away from this celebrity.
Yes.
My entire personal crusade is we need to bring capable people back to politics.
Yes.
I've had enough of celebrities. I've had enough of politicians.
Yes.
Give me people who actually know how to run things.
Yes, that would be helpful, wouldn't it?
I think
because
it
at the
might be
moment,
useful.
we don't really know. I mean, speaking of which, have you seen who they put in charge of the health service?
The health service, another chap who's never had a real job.
James Murray, right? And I looked him up last night because I thought, let's see whether he's got anything to bring to the party, whether he's worked in some kind of industry which might have taught him some possible, skill that he could use. No, he's been a councillor and an MP, and that's it. He was a councillor from the age of when he left university, he became a councillor at the age of 23. And then he suddenly became attached to Mayor Khan in London. So he worked for the mayor's office in some role in charge of housing or something. And now he's an MP. And now he's Secretary of State for Health. He knows nothing about the health business. He knows nothing about the NHS, as far as I can tell. He's never worked in it. He's never lived through it. I don't know whether he's got any personal experience of going to the doctor. But, he's now running the NHS.
And that's it. He is now responsible for managing a department worth, what is it, £250 billion
Well, isn't it the
for the
third biggest
budget?
organisation in the world?
Organisation in the world,
Yeah.
managing 2 million employees, and he's never had a proper job.
No.
Like, if you think about even our country, it's a £3 trillion pound economy, 3 trillion economy, which is the same size as Apple, basically. And we've got some bloke in charge and a bunch of politicians who wouldn't get a job at Apple to run the Genius bar.
He wouldn't get a job on the front desk,
right?
would he?
You wouldn't get a job anywhere.
Receptionist at
right? And you look at the calibre of people that you would have in there, like 5-6 levels down from the CEO.
Yeah.
And you compare them to a politician, and it's chalk and cheese. And that's really, as I've become more and more involved in this political world, it's been the most eye-opening thing to me.
Yeah.
Because I used to think all of these people were really capable. And then people coming to me about my stats and my data and so on, wow, this is fantastic. I'm like, well, okay, I do work for a big company, but this isn't that complicated.
Yeah, no, it's not. Because when you work for big companies, you work with some very clever people, and you can learn things from them, and you can sort of, work in different departments and pick things up. And over time, you suddenly find that you know quite a lot yourself. But the trouble with these guys is that, and I found the same thing with as you did when I was down in College Green all those years ago, back in the sort of the stalemate Brexit days, 2019, before the Boris Johnson election in December, and we were there all summer. And I remember these politicians coming in and sitting down and talking to me and thinking, I mean, they're not all dumb, but an awful lot of them weren't very smart. An awful lot of them, a surprising number. And I'd kind of ask them questions and they didn't understand the question, or I'd sort of, I'd probe them for their thoughts on something that they'd prognosticated upon, and they couldn't explain it. And I'm like, sorry, I work in the media business where we're pretty good at explaining things. That's our job. It's also your job as a politician. And many of them are not able to articulate anything.
Not able to articulate anything, don't have a leg to stand on. And I think it doesn't help that so many politicians are surrounded by people who are just sucking up, for lack of a better word, to get their own safe seat and a job on this committee or potentially on a list here for election so they can end up wherever. I'll tell you one politician I've met who does have it together, He's actually someone you've got on later, Richard Tice.
Yeah, Richard
He's one
Tice,
of the few people I've met where I'm like, he's absolutely brilliant. He knows his
Richard
stuff.
Tice has run things, that's
Exactly.
why. He's run businesses all of his life, and he's a very smart man, and he knows what it's like to deal with unions, he knows what it's like to deal with bureaucrats, with politicians, in fact, with, if he wants to build something, or he wants to own something, or he wants to get permission to do something, and over time, as a businessman, you come into contact with a lot of politicians and councillors and people like that who are trying to stop you from, what we call the business interruption brigade, you can't do that, or no, you can't do that over there, and so he knows how to negotiate, he knows how to talk to people, he knows how to interact with people. And again, a lot of these politicians, because they only talk to each other, don't know how to do it. And I think this week we've seen it, haven't we? I mean, the front page of the Daily Mail today, Labour's great pretenders. Streeting quits, but number 10 mocks failure to get votes to challenge the Prime Minister. Because again, yesterday they were sort of briefing against him inside number 10, having allowed him or accepted the fact that he was going to resign in order to have a go at becoming leader. And then they started briefing out against him that he didn't have the right number of votes. Angela Rayner, suddenly she gets her HMRC problem solved overnight. £40,000 she manages to find from the back of the sofa, hands it over.
Have you seen she got a £50,000 donation from some fridge company or something?
Oh, really?
Just at the end of the tax year.
How interesting, yeah. And I wonder why it is that she didn't get a fine, because everybody else would have got a fine for not paying their taxes.
We should say that. I got a text yesterday when that story broke off of someone I know on the Isle of Dogs, former business leader. And he was telling me a story of how when he first started his business many years ago, he'd filed his he'd given the tax returns to the accountant. The accountant unfortunately died, and he didn't realise that they hadn't been filed beforehand.
Yeah.
So he got pulled up in front of HMRC for 20 grand.
Yeah.
And explained the situation. The HMRC turned around to him and went, "Oh, yeah, that's really unfortunate. We appreciate you didn't do that, but we're still going to fine you another 20 grand."
Exactly. Well, I got the same problem. I said this yesterday on the show. I had a VAT, I missed a VAT deadline. You have to pay it quarterly, And for some reason I think it was the November before last. And it was just one of those very busy periods. My accountant had filed it, but forgotten to email me, which is what she normally does, to go, by the way, this is how much you have to pay. And so I'd forgotten to pay it. And it suddenly got to November and opened the post, and there was a letter from HMRC saying, "We know that you've always paid on time," which I have, for the best part of 20 years, actually more than 20 years. However, as a result of you filing this late, we're going to fine you £1,000.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I was like, great. And I actually appealed it, and I think I got it down to 500. And then I said to the accountant, it's partly your fault, so you can pay half. So I got away with 250 quid. But, the point is, at the end of the day, they didn't go, oh, you forgot. Oh, OK, that's all right then. We won't fine you. Of course they're going to fine you.
And this is what annoys so many of us up and down the country. It's just the constant, I hate the phrase now, two-tier, because it's become so politicised, but it is the constant two-tier treatment.
Yeah.
All anybody wants is consistency and fairness. And whether you look at their immigration system, you look at this stuff with Burnham, you look at this stuff with Rayner, you look at this stuff pretty much anywhere, that's what it comes back to. Just be fair, just be consistent. Say what you're going to do, apply it equally to everyone, and then let's get on with their lives.
And I think that's the problem with our political class now, because we now have a political class.
Yes.
In the olden days, and I know that people don't want to hear about this all the time, that it was better then, than it is now. but we didn't have this professional political class that we have now. People who, as we've just been describing, James Murray, who have never done anything else.
Never done anything else.
And they appear to get treated differently than the rest of us, And at the end of the day, you kind of go, well, how is that happening? How is that possible? How do they get away with it? And similarly, in a way that they're all looking out of the Daily Mail, God help us all, day 2, it says on the front. Because the bottom line is, whether you like the poll or not, Alison says, unfortunately, the poll is reality. Whether you like the poll or not, those are the 4 people who are currently being presented as the next leaders of this country.
Those are. And let me tell you a story quickly.
Go on.
I won't name the political party because I don't want to potentially get sued. But when I moved back to London and I started to think about getting involved in politics, I went to an event and I met some politicians from across the political spectrum. And one of the political parties on the left basically went, "You're great. You're a mixed race lad from East London, all of this stuff. Do you want to stand for us?" And I went, "Well, no, I disagree with pretty much everything you stand for."
Right.
And their response to me was, "Don't worry, we can give you a script." And when I see some of these politicians now, And we sit there and we think there's no way you can possibly believe what you've just said. I always play back that conversation in my head because I do actually wonder how many of these people across parties are actually there saying what they believe, or whether they are just reading from a script. And I don't want to get into crazy conspiracy territory, but that literally happened to me, where one of these political parties offered me a script, even though I believe nothing
and
they do.
And did you get the sense that they wanted you because of how you looked, because of how you sounded, or because
all of the above? Right. I am the poor mixed race kid from inner city London who made good, you know, ended up doing multi-billion-dollar M&A on the other side of the world and all of that kind of stuff. Ticks all of the boxes for the left progressive kind of thing. The only problem is no one gave me a handout. I got there on merit and I had to claw my way up, which is very much a right side of the spectrum story.
Well, you would say, but of course they would love it then if you could come out and go, and that's why I support the Labour Party, or that's why I support the Greens, or whatever it is, because then they could see that you would be a substantial individual who not only was a nice person because you're on the left side of politics, but that, you know, you've actually managed to become successful despite the horrible people on the right.
Exactly that. And they really don't like it when I say, well, I went all the way up and at no point did anybody say, oh, well, you used to have a really strong Cockney accent, or, you know, you're a bit too brown for this room. There was no one standing in the way. If you're good enough, you get promoted. That's the way the world works, right? Are there some awful people across everywhere? Of course. There's always the odd so-and-so here.
Quite a lot of them are working in the political business, you know, because you can see that there are some awful, horrible people. One here says, why should none of the above be an option? There's some people asking for none of the above. It's not the reality of the situation.
See, it's all those Diane Abbott supporters in the chat.
It's this one from Sassy. It's making people chat whether you like or don't like the poll or poll contenders. It's doing its job. It's Mike's show, so F off, says Sassy River Fairy. And why are people arguing about? I don't understand what they're arguing about.
No, because they don't like them.
They don't like the poll.
We don't like them. But it's the
but if you don't like the people in the poll, why does that mean you don't like the poll? Surely the poll is the poll.
No, they want Nigel Farage to be in there. But that's just ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but he's not in the Labour Party.
No, he's none of the other.
That'd be a hell of a defection.
That would be, yeah. Now, let's have a look at what Kerry Badenoch has to say. She's talking yesterday about how the Labour Party is now in a state of civil war.
I told Wes Streeting to do his job. Instead, he's done a hit job on the Prime Minister. The Labour Party has now descended into civil war. And here's the thing. While they're sharpening their knives and plotting in the bars of Westminster, nobody is running the country. So my team in Parliament is setting out what a serious government should actually do. This week, we're putting votes to Labour that'll stop the welfare spiral, properly secure and control our borders, boost the size of our army, and get serious on defence. And on energy, we lower bills by £200, cutting the green taxes that are killing British industry. The problem is not just Keir Starmer, it's Labour. And it doesn't matter which Labour MP is in charge, they're all queuing up to make things worse. Labour can't even agree on who leads their party. They have a vacancy. We have a plan to get Britain working again.
Now, isn't that a very interesting thing that she's just said there? Because in a way, she's just explained to us why we've got the poll that we've got. Because she's basically saying it doesn't matter which one of these characters runs the country, they're all useless. So here it is again. Who would you prefer to be Prime Minister? Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham, or Angela Rayner? At the moment, Wes Streeting, unbelievably, is coming top. So he'll be waking up this morning thinking, well, where did it all go wrong? You know, I was the front runner for about 5 minutes, you know, and then suddenly I wasn't.
No, he is a front runner.
No, but I mean, I'm talking about in actual in Labour Party ranks. He was a front runner before Andy Burnham decided to run. He's a front runner in our poll, which is great. Leon says, have a poll to see how pathetic it is to get angry about a poll. The thing that you learn about the human race, which is brilliant, is that you can never underestimate how angry people will get about things that you didn't think they'd get angry about.
I can.
Isn't that right?
It is. It's. I think Twitter blows that up massively, right?
Yeah.
It's just they get angry about the
Twitter is just chock full of people getting angry about everything.
Angry about absolutely everything.
Yeah,
possible.
there's nothing better. Speaking of strangeness on the left, right? How about Zach Polanski, who's had a terrible week, right? You know, because we found out just before the election, although he did all right during the election, although not as well as I thought he was going to do actually the Green vote wasn't as big as I think it should have been. Partly because of him, I think, because people have started to look at him and go, I think you're a bit of a charlatan, mate.
Not just that, they're literally the party of students, hipsters.
And Hamas.
And not even that. I mean, most of those actually hate the Green Party. Like where I am in Tower Hamlets, they did very, very badly because all of the kind of gender ideology and all of that stuff, they take one look at it and are just like, no, thank you. So they did well in Hackney.
So the Moth in Alley kind of brigade are not that happy.
Not that happy with it. They did well in Hackney because Hackney is full of loads of left-wing middle-class hipsters. But as soon as you got down to Tower Hamlets, and even in Newham, didn't do that well.
No,
really underperformed. It was the same thing in Richmond.
Coming hot on the heels of all of his previous admissions, that one, his mother, which may or may not be a problem for him, his mother's some kind of OnlyFans glamour model. He's had to admit that he didn't pay his council tax, which is a criminal offence as far as I know. So we'll see how that
Tax
will go.
It's just not him.
Yeah, it's just not him. And I think he's been reported to the Metropolitan Police by the Tories. So we'll see how that goes. He had to admit that he wasn't, in fact, a spokesman for the Red Cross, even though he said he was. He had to admit that he didn't work for the Ministry of Justice. It now turns out, according to the front page of the Times, that he didn't even vote.
He didn't even vote.
Zach Polanski has admitted he did not vote in last week's local elections, despite previous claims he had voted in Hackney by post. So not only did he not vote, but he lied about voting.
Which makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
is
there anything about this guy that is genuine?
Well,
his name's not even right.
That's what I was going to say. Is he even called Zach Polanski, right? He's going to be a campaign slogan at some point. There's nothing real about him. He's just another politician that wanted to be famous, tried with the Lib Dems, fouled, because even the Lib Dems couldn't take him seriously. And you've got Ed Davey dancing around on TikTok or whatever it is. He will say whatever he needs to say to get votes. I was watching an interview with, was it your event where Layla Cunningham said, that he's perfectly normal behind the scenes. And as soon as he gets on screen,
acting, in other words.
He's completely acting. It is all a show. Doesn't believe half of what he says, I bet. But it ticks the right boxes and gives him a vehicle to get more power.
But my suspicion about him is that he will kind of burn out, if you like, because he's in the sort of the first flame of the sort of the lift off from the ground. But pretty soon he's going to run out of fuel and it's all going to fall.
It will all fall, and it will. I think what it will do is it will help us help the left understand that nobody likes the woke stuff.
No.
It's like 8% of the population that actually care about all of this crazy ideology.
Well, we've seen how the wokists behave when they suddenly get presented with the thing that they want everybody else to have to put up with. For example, when the Greens were told, well, if you vote with the Greens into your area, as far as reform are concerned, we will send you a whole bunch of migrants to put in a detention centre. And they all went, why are you punishing us? And you go, hang on a minute, I didn't think you thought that it was a punishment. Oh, I was just about to read that one out, Pooh, sorry. What was it? Another more poll action. How ridiculous some people are, says Sarge. Getting up about a poll, leaving because of a poll. If you do that, you shouldn't be here. What, people are now leaving?
Yeah, people are leaving.
Or people are switching off because they don't like the poll. No. Seriously? Deary me. There must be Labour voters. John says, you missed the point. We know you dislike them all. None of the above is easy. We are asking a genuine question. Who is the best of the bad bunch? None of the above voters didn't vote. Oh, sorry, that's coming from us. Yeah, I mean, the point about this poll is that it's about who is actually going to be in a position to become the Prime Minister under the Labour government, because the Labour government, whether you like it or not, is the government. And so whoever is in charge of the Labour government is the Prime Minister. And over the course of the next several days and weeks, we will discover whether it becomes Andy Burnham, whether it becomes Angela Rayner, whether it becomes Wes Streeting, or whether Keir Starmer fights them all off, which I think you think, Lee, that he might do.
I can see him doing it. I can see they are all so scared of change, scared of their own shadow, scared of doing anything wrong, that they're completely risk averse. So I can see him get into a scenario where Burnham maybe wins if he gets that far.
Well, if Burnham doesn't win, right?
I think that'll kill it dead. I honestly don't think he'll win. Right. But assuming he wins by the skin of his teeth.
Yes.
But then it's not going to be an easy seat. So because he didn't win by much, they're all going to be back in that state of paralysis going, well, maybe he's not as popular, so then maybe it's all about how do they cling on to their seat and power at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And because they've got that fear of losing, they're not willing to do the things. If they actually just did their job, if they actually just stopped the boats, sorted out tax, actually let businesses do what they need to do, got the economy moving, if they actually just did all of that, most people don't care about left-wing and right-wing in politics. They would just look at their paycheck, oh, more this month, thank you very much. This is going well, that's going well, fantastic.
The problem is the cost of living is an issue, right?
Is.
And they're not doing anything about that. And in fact, there are those who believe that the cost of living will rise and rise and rise through the course of this year. And so things will get more expensive. Life will become more difficult. People will have less money. They won't be able to go on holiday. They won't be able to get a new car. They won't be able to move house. All of the things that, normal people spend their time thinking about, planning for, trying to have a decent family life with your kids. All of those things that people worry about are not going to improve for them. And I think most people, even in the Labour government and the Labour Party, know that Keir Starmer's days are numbered. But they've got to come up with a reasonable plan to get him out.
Got to come up with a reasonable plan to get him out. When they do that,
because he's clearly not just going to walk away.
He's not going to walk away. He's going to cling on for dear life. And when they try to get him out, it's going to spook the bond markets because everyone they talk about is going to be more and more left-wing.
Yeah.
And we may end up in a hilarious scenario. Well, it's not going to be hilarious for us because we're going to have to live through it. But a scenario where a potentially even further left Labour government is going to have to impose austerity because the bond markets have just said no.
Right,
no
and that
more
would
money
be the
for you.
Angela Rayner scenario, wouldn't it? I mean, because Burnham isn't really. Again, Burnham's a bit Starmer-like for me. He hasn't really got any great aspirations to be politically pure. He doesn't have a particular kind of conviction about left or right or centre ground or anything because he's been a Corbynite, he's been a Blairite, he's been a Starmerite. Now he's been Manchester Mayor for a while, where again he's not as popular as people are making out.
He's a Gary Nevilleite.
He's a Gary Nevilleite. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. He's not somebody that you could predict will be either left or right. He seems to be somebody who will lean slightly more to the left than Starmer, but not much.
Yeah, so I've seen some research showing that he's had some funding and been backed by some people who are definitely further to the left, even involved with the Greens and so on. So it would be interesting to see what his true colours are. Yeah. And this is the one reason why I would never want her as Prime Minister, but the one reason I like Angela Rayner as a political personality is she'd be a disaster running the country.
Oh, yeah.
But at least she's authentic. And what she believes.
Do you think she's authentic? See, I don't think any of them are. I think that's my problem. There's an interesting headline in the Mail, which is a piece by Andrew Pearce. Everyone in Labour admires what she's achieved, but that doesn't mean you want her making the big decisions at 3 a.m.
No, correct. You wouldn't want her anywhere near any of those
decisions. That made both of us kind of shiver, because we both went, can you imagine what Angela Rayner's up to at 3 a.m.? I really don't want to think about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, with the White House on the phone, Ange, what? Put that down.
That's it, right. And again, we're back to wanting people who are qualified.
Yeah.
And look, a lot of people on the left go, oh, well, you don't like Angela Rayner because my mum was a single mum. She dropped out of school when she was 15. She had no GCSEs. I love my mum. I don't want her making decisions at 3 a.m. with the White House. No. She would not be qualified to do so.
No, quite.
Right.
And neither would any of these people. I mean, I'm not even sure I want Keir Starmer doing it, to be honest. I've got this little note that's coming on Substack from Mr. C. I'm going to read it. Good morning, Mike. Can you wish me a happy birthday and wish good weather for the United Kingdom massive march tomorrow? Peace and love. Mr. C, a very happy birthday to you. And I can't speak for the weather because I haven't seen such bizarre weather as the weather we've had this week for a while. I mean, I don't know. I mean, every time I look out the window, it's either beautiful blazing sunshine or it's as dark as night. And it's thundery. There was more thunder and hail yesterday, wasn't there? When we were filming in here yesterday. Very good plank of the week and plonk of the week, by the way. Plank of the week tonight, 7 p.m. Plonk of the week tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Lee, great to see you.
Always good to see you.
Lee Nalalingam.
There we go.
How's that? Right. I got it right twice. That's unusual for me. I can learn. I'm like, one of those turtles. Anyway, really good to see you.
Likewise.
Next time we'll talk some more about your stats but this is the only story in town really today.
Only story in town
is what is going on inside the mind of Downing Street, because the other scenario is that basically Keir Starmer doesn't block Andy Burnham from running, doesn't stop him from becoming the candidate, but possibly stops the actual election, the by-election, from happening. Because they can do that, can't they, for a few months and sort of push it into the long grass so that he ends up sitting in Downing Street for another few months.
They can push it back. My prediction now, Burnham loses the by-election and then they lose the mayoral election as well.
To reform. Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it? Double whammy. Happy birthday, Mr. C, says Alison. There you go. You're getting it from all sides. Coming up, I think we've got Ralph to speak to, haven't we?
Yeah, do you have the news first?
Let's have some news first with Edward Hughes.
Morning. I'm Fiona MacLeod. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is under intense pressure to resign after poor local and devolved election results. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has quit, stating he has lost confidence in Starmer's leadership, joining other ministers who have stepped down. Over 80 Labour MPs have called for Starmer to go, with rivals like Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham positioning themselves. Burnham has a clearer path after an MP resigned his seat to trigger a by-election. Starmer's fighting to survive amid cabinet turmoil. Other headlines: a new deal with France aims to curb small boat crossings in the Channel. Police warnings: don't swim at most new river bathing sites on the Thames and elsewhere due to pollution. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligators.
Fiona MacLeod there. My apologies, Fiona. I didn't realise it was Friday. I mean, in my mind, I sort of knew it was Friday, but I forgot that you were going to be doing the news. How nice to see Fiona back at work, because I decided I prefer her. I'm starting to think that old Edward Hughes is a bit of an untrustworthy character. Do you know what I mean?
He calls you Mick as well.
He does. He called me Mick, which I'm not having, by the way. If he does that next week, he's off.
out.
He's out. You know, three strikes, man.
Are you daring him?
We've had it. Well, we've had so many problems with him.
I know.
You know, he can't keep his hands to himself. One, right? He had a problem leaving his wife. He did that weird stuff with his Mohican.
And then Carol Decker.
And the Carol Decker incident. I mean, you know, luckily she's a woman of the world. She wasn't too worried about it. But you know, if it had been anybody else, you know, we could be liable for that.
Absolutely.
He's one of our employees, right? I'm getting a lot of messages on Polegate.
Are you?
Do you know there's a place called Polegate down in Sussex,
I know.
near Eastbourne?
1L.
Yeah, with 1L, yeah.
Ask Ralph about it.
Yeah, we will ask Ralph about it. Ralph Schoellhammer is here. Ralph, very good morning to you.
Good talking to you, Mike. How are you doing today?
Well, very well. And so we were doing really well today until we put a poll out this morning, which was the straightest. Normally we do a kind of a whimsical, funny poll and ask people stupid questions, right? But this morning we thought we'd just do it dead straight. Who would you prefer to be Prime Minister? Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham or Angela Rayner? All terrible choices. All useless, you know, socialists, right? At the moment, incredibly, Wes Streeting is actually winning at 40%. 2,000 people have voted. But loads of people are complaining about the poll, saying we don't like any of the options. I'm like, well, we don't like them either, but that's what we're left with, because the Labour government is now in this place where only they can choose who gets to be the leader of the country.
Well, I guess that's a little bit the situation of politics all over the West at the moment, right? That all the options that are available, nobody really likes them.
No.
So in that sense, your poll is very accurate. I mean, I'm surprised that Andy Burnham gets 11%. I mean, he's the Greater Manchester area, if I'm not mistaken. I have to be very careful. I don't want to be sued for libel or anything. But of course, that was one of the areas, let's say, where Labour has been less than active when it came to investigating grooming gangs and similar incidents, to put it mildly.
Well, not just that, but also, you know, he has this reputation, Andy Burnham, of being what they call in London the king of the north, right? But actually, if you go to the north of England, which hardly anybody in London does, you'll find that he's not at all the king of the north. People don't really like him very much, and he's not actually improved. I don't know if you've ever been to Manchester, but he hasn't improved Manchester for the people. And even more ridiculously, the Labour Party apparently have said if he leaves being the mayor of Manchester in order to run to be an MP in London, do you know who they want to replace him with?
No, tell me.
Gary Neville.
David Lammy?
Gary
good
Neville.
Lord.
I'm not joking. Because they're so out of touch with regular people that they think, oh, he's a footballer and he's left wing and he says some good things about, you know, the rich, even though he is stinking rich. He's the ultimate champagne socialist. He made that, I don't know if you saw that speech that he made where he blamed middle-aged white men basically for all the problems in Britain.
Yeah. Listen, I'm supposedly in ancient Rome that the tendency was that I don't know how they felt about football players since it wasn't around at the time, but usually the social standing of actors, for example, was slightly above prostitutes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we ended up in a situation where we are constantly being lectured by people who, have no say in this. I enjoy a good TV show, right? I enjoy a good football game, but I don't need them then afterwards to explain to me what my politics are supposed to be. This is so absurd. Don't get me wrong. If somebody is very talented in football, awesome. They make millions, good for them. Fantastic. Yeah. But don't tell me about my politics. This is not what I'm watching you for, and this is not what you're being paid for. The same with actors. Right? George Clooney says so-and-so. I don't care what George Clooney says on anything. Maybe I'm willing to take his advice on a coffee machine. Apparently he has some expertise in that area. But that's pretty much, that's it. Or, Robert De Niro, whose every word apparently, if he doesn't have a script. No, but if Robert De Niro doesn't have a script, basically every word is the F word. So I don't know, he might be a good actor, but apparently he's not a very good linguist. And I don't care what he has to say about anything. This is so absurd, the kind of celebrity culture bleeding into politics. The only political statement from celebrities I continue to accept were the Spice Girls in the 90s. And I think it was Spicy Spice or whoever Gary Halliwell was when she was wearing like the Union Jack dress, which apparently now you can get arrested for this in the UK. So that's the only kind of politics that I accept. To bring back the celebrities of the 90s, I think, they knew where their place was, and I enjoyed that much more.
Yeah. Also, it was a good message the Spice Girls had. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. That's what we want the politicians to say, right? Don't do what you think we want. Do what we actually want.
And let's stick to this topic just for a second, because if you look at the 2010s and now at the 2020s, there isn't a lot going on, I would argue, in the so-called cultural scene, because everybody's focused on politics. Where are the Rolling Stones of our age? The Rolling Stones are still filling, stadiums, and everybody's watching them. Again, I love the Rolling Stones. Don't get me wrong. I'm a person of a certain age, but shouldn't there be something new at some point? I find it fantastic if, geriatric Mick Jagger is still jumping on stage. Again, great stuff. But they're like my father. I love my father. Don't get me wrong again. But they're like my father's age. If like the new rebel era is to look at people on stage who are like as old as your grandpas, I don't know. That's not a very rebellious.
It's not. No, it's like everything has become a kind of fake rebellion. I thought it was really interesting, and a lot of people wrote about this last year when Oasis came back. Because people said, the reason I want to go and see Oasis is because it reminds me of my younger self in the 90s, because I saw Oasis in the 90s and the 90s was great. And now the world has turned basically to a pile of crap. And people look back on the 90s as a kind of a carefree age when you could do whatever you wanted. Whereas now we live in this kind of autocratic, rather despicably kind of depressing society where the government of the day, which is specifically the Labour government, are trying to stop us from having any fun.
Well, which is true, but I would make as a counter-argument that usually during times of depression, during times of crisis, that is when the arts are flourishing. Look at every pop song, like it's about broken hearts, it's about unreciprocated love, it's about pain. This art has always been, I think, a way for humans to cope with the changing world around them. But to some extent, I don't want to exaggerate it, but it feels to me that to some extent we have lost that ability. Look at what's being played in the cinemas at the moment. It's like Sequel Man 5 and Spider-Man 28. So it's only prequels of sequels of sequels of prequels. I lost track. Who is the current Spider-Man? Is it Tom Holland or is it?
I know. Who cares? Actually,
or what the other guy? Yeah, exactly. So this is all very. There is nothing new under the sun, which I'm exaggerating slightly, but I find it somewhat depressing. It's the same now with they're doing now a remake of the Lord of the Rings, and if you have new ideas, you wouldn't constantly do remakes and premakes and prequels and sequels.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Listen, Ralph.
Now I sound like my grandfather.
No, I know. Well, that's what happens as you get older. You'll find it gets worse, by the way, and you'll start to get annoyed by things that your dad used to get annoyed by, like people talking on the bus and people listening to music loudly that you can hear as well. But listen, we've got to get on because we've got a massively crazy busy show today. So, Ralph, I'm going to apologise to you in advance because we have to run. But don't forget, Mike. Mrs. A says, get him to say it. What are you going to do next week?
Mike, I'll be back on your show next Friday. Looking forward to it.
Brilliant stuff. Ralph Schoellhammer there talking to us. Brilliant stuff. Great. We wanted to get stuck in actually to the banning of the various different people from Europe who have not been allowed to come here for the Unite the Kingdom March. We'll talk to Lauren the Insider coming up about that in a little while. But right now, we've got Richard Tice from Reform to speak to. So let's go straight to him. Mr. Tice, a very good morning to you, sir.
Very good morning to you, Mr. Graham. And yes, I think as we get older, we do become a little less tolerant for people who are somewhat antisocial on the trains and things, listening to music. But goodness me, what a world we live in. I mean, who's running the country, Mr. Graham? Is it you? Who is it?
Well, I mean, I think if I was, it would be a lot better than it is now currently. I mean, we've got a poll this morning which is upsetting everyone because they don't like any of the choices on it. It says, who would you prefer to be Prime Minister? Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham or Angela Rayner? And I know it's a terrible choice and I know it's awful and none of them are going to be any good. However, the bottom line is that's what we're facing. You know, one of those four people in the coming weeks is going to be the next Prime Minister.
I'm absolutely amazed that 35% of that poll still want Starmageddon. I mean, I invented this word 2 years ago, and when I invented it, I didn't realise just how bad it would be, how quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just extraordinary, 22 months on, the absolute chaos descending the country. But it looks as though it is game on, Mike, and there is going to be a by-election in Makerfield, just by Wigan, and we are going to have a fantastic candidate. We're going all out. And I would just remind people, in the general election, when we obviously had limited resources and focus, we got our candidate there secured a whisker under 13,000 votes.
Yeah.
And at the local elections last week, the same local candidate has been elected as a councillor, and we won all of the wards in that constituency of Makerfield. So, we're very bullish, and our new slogan is vote reform, make Burnham history.
Well, I mean, it shows you how arrogant these people are, doesn't it? That they think that Andy Burnham, because in Manchester, people I speak to don't like Andy Burnham, right? People in London think he's the king of the north because they've never been there. They don't understand the mentality of the population up there who are sick to death of being talked down to, of having bus gates put in everywhere they go, of having, clean air zones imposed upon them, which he had to do a reversal on. All manner of things, of things that he has tried to do. The Manchester economy is worse now under him. The Manchester streets are dirtier. They're more dangerous. There's more migrants. The whole thing is collapsing in on itself.
Also, he has not got clean hands in terms of the way that he's dealt with the grooming gang scandal, and the inquiries and things. I think, and the fascinating thing is, he has to resign as Mayor of Greater Manchester, we understand, the moment he is nominated as candidate for the constituency by-election. So that's why actually the potential is, and our hope is that we defeat him in the by-election, and then of course there has to be a new Greater Manchester mayoral contest, and we'll have a great candidate for that. And our ambition is Reform are going to become the king of the north. In fact, we think we already are.
Yeah, well, that would be hilarious. I mean, I think it would certainly complete my year. And have you seen who they're thinking of asking to run as the Labour candidate for mayor, if indeed there is an election for that? Have you seen this one?
No, do update me.
Gary Neville.
What?
Gary Neville. I know. Gary Neville. The man who thinks that the problems in Britain are all made by people like us, who I presume he would describe as angry, middle-aged white men.
But can I just clarify, would he be running for Labour or for the Greens?
Well, I mean, who knows? Probably for the Champagne Socialist Party. Well, he is, Champagne Socialist Party. Yeah, exactly right. Now, let's go back to your choices, though, because I believe last night you invited applicants for the role of who should stand in Makerfield, and then I think you closed it. So, can you say anything about who you might be going for?
We've got some great applicants, Mike, and when we're obviously moving at great speed, but we'll go through the selection process, and we're going to have whoever is selected we think will be a cracking candidate to beat Andy Burnham, and we're
And do
just
you
going to have
feel-
to work incredibly hard. I mean, it's going to be the mother of all by-elections.
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of people saying to me as well that Reform have to be careful that they don't try and do what Burnham's doing, which is to carpet bag somebody in there and get somebody local. And I mean, some people are suggesting to me Maggie Oliver might be a good candidate. I don't know whether she's in the frame.
As I say, there are some good candidates in the frame, and we'll obviously make a selection rapidly and onwards and upwards. What is unclear, though, and this is important, is the likely time frame for this by-election, because the Labour Party, the chief whip, has to move the writ. He could potentially wait some months, and that obviously would be very bad for everybody, actually. And bad for the
I mean,
country,
what's the
because
procedure?
It would mean the whole thing would be in complete limbo.
Yes, because my understanding of the procedure is that if the chief whip is, shall we say, a bit slow in setting the starting gun, the Speaker of the House could do it. Would that happen?
That's my understanding too, and opposition parties such as ourselves would be pushing hard for the writ to be moved on the basis that it's in the public interest. So, look, I think all of that is to be looked at hard and fast. I think it's in everybody's interest to get this by-election underway. We're raring to go, and it would not be good for the country to have a long, protracted sort of gradual death spiral for this Prime Minister in electoral terms.
No, exactly right. And I mean, you might remember it as I do. I don't think we've got it today to play it, but you remember when Keir Starmer was asked, I think it was on the eve of the election in 2024 in July, and he said, "We are ready to govern in every department. We are ready to hit the ground running." He said that he had a full team in place. They were all absolutely clued up as to what to do as soon as they, sat down in the chair in the great states, the great sort of departments of state. And he couldn't have been more wrong. They weren't ready for anything. I mean, even you could not have foreseen the shambles that has now become this government. I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, people tell me now, wherever they go on holiday abroad, whether it's Australia, America, Canada, the Philippines, everywhere you go, people go, "What's going on in Britain?" Because the place seems to have gone insane.
Well, but of course, that's what happens when hard left socialists take over running a country, and they're in the process of running out of our money. And we've been humiliated on the international stage with U-turn after U-turn after U-turn. I think the last count was about 24. There's more than one U-turn a month they've been in office. And internationally, whether it's the chaos over the ludicrous plan to pay to give away the vital strategic interest of the Chagos Islands, and so on, and the dithering and flip-flopping over other international affairs, we just look weak, we look incompetent. And when the mighty Royal Navy was instructed to take to the high seas, it turned out they needed a bit of WD-40 to sort of lubricant the one ship that we might have available, and that only lasted a couple of weeks before it needed more maintenance. I mean, it's just embarrassing.
It really is, and shockingly bad organisation from within. Because in Downing Street right now, I mean, I sort of wake up every morning and think to myself, imagine what it must be like to be Keir Starmer, waking up in Downing Street every morning. I don't think he's got a chief of staff. He's lost several of them. I don't think he's got a chief of communications, although that may not be true. His wife doesn't like him very much. His kid's probably not speaking to him. Wanders downstairs, looks around. Nobody's really talking. Anyway, I just imagine this scene of like a lone figure, looking for friends.
I'm detecting that you're going to send him your CV to try and help him out.
Well, I mean, I could go in there as a sort of sleeper cell scenario, and see if I could actually change the locks without him knowing about it, and just go outside for a bit, and then when he comes back in, he can't get back in because he's literally. I said the other day, he's like one of these recalcitrant children that you take to the pub, and at sort of 2:30, he refuses to leave, and you can't get him back in the car. That's what he's like.
It is, and it's quite clear that he's going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming out of number 10 as and when there is a leadership election. But also, the rules are quite tight. To get to 81 supporters to be a candidate means that in reality, I would have thought there's a maximum of 2 other candidates, as well as Starmer, who automatically goes on the ballot paper. He doesn't need 81 supporters, as I understand. But, he'll have the whole of the government. He'll have a sort of the government whip of about 150. They've got 400 MPs, so that leaves 250. Well, a couple of 81s, that's 160. I don't really see how they get a third candidate against him. I think it'll be 2 against him, or possibly a coalescence around 1.
Right. Well, this is the thing. Somebody pointed out to me this morning that 400 odd MPs, they can't find one of them that they think would be a good choice to go up against the guy who's in charge. So they have to bring somebody in from the outside. It's quite extraordinary. But, that's the other thing, is that if, in fact, you looked at Wes Streeting yesterday, he sort of fired the starting gun into his own head, didn't he? Because, he kind of said, right, I'm coming for you. And then it was like, he was already yesterday's man before he got to the end of Downing Street.
But actually, remember, it turns out there were a couple of blanks in the gun before he got to, because
that's right.
Because people have been expecting him to pull the trigger for some time,
right?
But nothing was happening. Nothing was coming out.
No.
So, I mean, it's beggars belief, and I think he realised that he couldn't get the numbers, and also, of course, he's got his own constituency to worry about, where his majority, Wes Streeting's majority, is only about just over 500.
Yeah.
So he's in all sorts of difficulty. My hunch now is that he doesn't become a candidate in the leadership election, and that he does some form of deal with another candidate. Obviously, we hope that Burnham won't be on the candidate list because we intend to defeat him in the by-election. And then that gets interesting, because then the left are going to have to coalesce around someone else.
I mean, is it possible that we end up being stuck with Starmer just because they can't figure out what to do?
Well, I mean, that is
and already, I mean, people are now, even the Sun this morning are calling for a general election, which is what I've been saying for ages. Because people kept telling me, that won't happen. But people are now saying, have a general election. Even Andy Burnham thought the Tories should have had one in 2022 when they changed their leader.
Well, there we are. I mean, if Starmer is the answer, then Starmageddon is the problem. That is for sure. It's like doubled down. We've got more of this. But of course, we must be delighted amongst all of this noise that Red-Ed Mad Miliband has got a terrible plan to he's going to legislate to ban any new oil and gas fields from being explored in the North Sea. What I can delight your listeners and viewers with, Mike, is that the moment there's a reform government, one of the first things that we repeal is that dreadful idea. I mean, it's just gross negligence. It's unbelievable.
It really is. I know you've got to run, but just one final thing. Apart from the Zach Polanski story this morning, which is on the front page of the Times, where he says he didn't even manage to vote actually on the last Thursday's elections, even though he said he did. Just one final story, because it was so horrifying. Page 17 of the Sun: a young waitress was knocked unconscious by a violent asylum seeker who then went on the run, basically in Bournemouth, one of the worst asylum seeker hotel places in Britain. Punched her, knocked her out, cold. And is now nowhere to be seen. Nobody knows where he is. And she's going, he's in his absence, he's been sentenced to a custodial sentence. But he's a dangerous man, wandering our streets, one of thousands, no doubt. I mean, when is this going to stop?
Well, it only stops when you detain these illegal invaders of our country. And of course, he should have been, when he was arrested, he should have been detained in custody and until the trial, when, if he was guilty, then he would have been sentenced and hopefully jailed or kicked out of the country. Yeah, he's from Eritrea, lovely part of the world. But there we are. Anyway, listen. Well, you know what's happening, just to finish? Apparently, lots of these illegals from elsewhere in the world are claiming to be Eritrean because that gives them a greater sympathy vote in the Home Office. Really? God almighty.
Absolutely ridiculous. Ridiculous. Anyway, Richard, have a great weekend. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Who knows what's going to happen in the next few days? Almost anything is possible. Richard Tice, their Deputy Leader of Reform, saying they've got a great candidate that they are going to pick over the course of the next couple of days. The applications all came in yesterday. Many of you may wish to give us your views on who should run against Andy Burnham up in Manchester, because, of course, we know how you like a poll. We could do another poll, couldn't we, on who should read the, just to confuse everyone. Marco's Magic says the poll should have included a general election as an option. Should it? But it isn't an option. I mean, I think there should be a general election. I've been saying that for a long time. People have been telling me that won't happen because it can't happen unless the government want to fall on their own swords. And of course, some people think that Keir Starmer might, in his kind of final death throes, actually threaten his own people in the Labour government with the general election, knowing they don't want to lose their jobs. This from Loyal. He says, Mike, your thoughts on a councillor who Kemi got rid of after making a pact with the Greens, etc. Even though Kemi did that, I don't trust her. Well, I think if you run a political organisation and you have people working inside of it who do deals without telling you and you're the boss, then I think you have to punish them, don't you? Otherwise, what's the point of having any party discipline? Mr. Gillespie says, Tories in Birmingham refusing to deal with RFM. Reform. Are they? Well, I mean, there's a lot of people doing a lot of stupid things right now, which is good for us because we get to highlight them. It's good for the political business. But Paul says Maggie Oliver. I think Maggie Oliver would be a great candidate. I don't know whether Maggie wants to run. Makerfield would benefit from Maggie Oliver, says Jennifer. She's where I'm from. Well, do tell us, Jennifer, what sort of place Makerfield is. I mean, certainly it seems to be Reform territory. And as I say, I don't know if... I mean, I know Maggie. She comes on the show on a regular basis. Great woman, fantastic campaigner, former police officer, of course, and the woman who really did bring the whole grooming gang story to light in the first place many, many moons ago. The problem, I suppose, is if she doesn't want to do it, she won't do it. But as you heard Richard Tice there saying, they will choose their candidate over the course of the next few days, I guess. And we'll find out over the course of the next few days as well how long it's going to take before the writ is moved. That means how long before they can announce actually that the by-election can take place. There are some who think that Starmer will try and put it off for quite a long time. Mayor of Manchester.
This is Charlotte.
Is this from Charlotte?
And we're going to do it.
Bez from Happy Mondays, Ken Barlow, Noel Gallagher or Peter Kay? Is this another poll?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's in a different style.
No, that's just a screenshot.
Ah, okay. I was going to wonder whether we can have two polls, can't we?
Yeah, we'll have two polls.
Well, I mean, how's the other poll going? I mean, let's see. Maybe we'll get more votes in the second poll, or maybe they'll think that's a stupid poll as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's hard to know. Difficult game, this, isn't it? Being popular. People always want to have a go. Mike's meltdown time. Lord Viking suggests. Well, yeah, we've got a good meltdown today. I'm going to be doing it coming up in a little while. Coming up, though, we're going to be talking to Lauren the Insider because it's the big Unite the Kingdom march tomorrow. I saw the police, by the way, and I don't know, maybe Lauren will be able to answer this question. The police, the Metropolitan Police, referring to it as the Unite the West march, which I don't know whether it's been changed by them or whether it's been changed by the organisers, but we'll talk to her about that. Also, coming up later on, the Bishop. He's going to be here. You know, our favourite bishop, Bishop Kai Dewar, is driven all the way from Pembrokeshire this morning to come and see us here in the studio. So we speak to him. Intel Lady's going to be here as well. Christian Drogan is here from the Watchman organisation. Philip Kisley is here too. And Ben Habib's going to be popping by a little bit later on as well. Should we do some news first? Yeah. Bit of news first with Fiona MacLeod.
Morning. I'm Fiona MacLeod. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is under intense pressure to resign after poor local and devolved election results. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has quit, stating he has lost confidence in Starmer's leadership, joining other ministers who have stepped down. Over 80 Labour MPs have called for Starmer to go, with rivals like Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham positioning themselves. Burnham has a clearer path after an MP resigned his seat to trigger a by-election. Starmer's fighting to survive amid cabinet turmoil. Other headlines: a new deal with France aims to curb small boat crossings in the Channel. Police warnings: don't swim at most new river bathing sites on the Thames and elsewhere due to pollution. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligators.
Fiona McLeod with the news there. Thank you very much indeed. You know what to do, by the way. Tonight, Plank of the Week, 7 o'clock. Also, look out for Plonk of the Week, which is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. But of course, a lot of people this weekend are coming into London for the United Kingdom March, which has been organised for some time. It's a big one. It's probably going to be bigger than the last one. And let's talk to Lauren, the insider, independent journalist, who's going to be there. Who's going to tell us what we can expect. Or if you're going, do let us know, by the way. Lauren, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Is there a reason for that, Pooch? No.
Well, I even put some makeup on for you, Mike. Hang on.
Did you? Well, then I must see you, please. I've got a black square that I'm currently looking at.
Yeah.
But
Turn the light on.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
There we go.
There we are. Brilliant. Fantastic. Good to see you. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. And thank you very much for talking to us. I mean, you're one of the few people who hasn't been banned from going to the United Kingdom March, presumably. Tell us what's coming up. Tell us what we can expect.
Well, Keir Starmer is absolutely panicking because Tommy and everyone has managed to get a group of people together that are from all around of the world. And we know that Starmer can control the mainstream media here. So he has banned 7 US names from coming to United Kingdom because all of a sudden this is gaining momentum in a way that they can't control it. And so, what do you know? He manages to stop the borders and stop people from America coming in. But if you are an unvetted male migrant of fighting age, you come straight in and you have a house, you be put in these communities and cause danger to women and children.
Yeah.
So Unite the Kingdom, it is going to attract a huge amount of people. And it's very interesting. We're seeing 2-tier policing already at play. So they'll be doing the facial recognition, facial ID just for Unite the Kingdom. But obviously with all the Palestine marches, it's a totally different approach. Last year, we saw, and I always am careful to say it's not all police. I do understand there are some great people within the police. However, they were very, very hostile last year. I predicted the headlines before the event happened. It was all, thugs, Tommy. It was so aggressive. It was so negative. And the problem is, we see people like GB News and many other media outlets start to brand this as far right. Do these clowns not realise millions of their viewers are going to this march? So they're being inaccurately branded as far right. When I was presenting last year, I met council workers that had had their lives destroyed by blowing the whistle on the grooming gangs. I met parents whose children had been sexually assaulted and groomed from the grooming gangs. The amount of whistleblowers that I came into contact with, and not through an organised way. This was me just reporting on the street, on the ground, in my trainers.
Yeah.
The way the state has smeared, gaslit, bullied and manipulated people. And let's remember, at the very crux of this, it's not about Tommy Robinson. It's not about Starmer. This is about children have been targeted. White British children have been targeted, raped, abused, failed. The establishment has covered this up. This is what this is about. And so for this to be branded far right, this is absolutely abhorrent.
Yeah. Well, it's inaccurate, as you say, because most of the people that I know who went last year were just ordinary members of the public who were a bit fed up with what they see every single day. Palestinian marches being organised, being allowed to go through Jewish areas, being allowed to kind of have people attending them who wear masks, who wear Hamas headgear, who shout death to Israel, death to America, death to the IDF and all of that. And yet, this is a relatively, I would say, wholesome event, which was so big last time that an awful lot of people didn't even get anywhere near the stage and didn't even get to hear what was actually being said. And I think this time they're going to have bigger sort of sound areas, aren't they? They're going to have bigger speakers and bigger, screens everywhere so that people can actually see it. And it's really just ordinary British people who want to get their voice back. And I don't see why somehow anyone would want to demonise that.
Yeah, I really, really want your viewers to remember what I'm saying now. And my background is mainstream media. I spent 20 years in PR as a gatekeeper. So I'm aware of how these kind of ops work. I have a very strong suspicion that, let's call it the shadow state, will plant some agitators that look like patriots. Because I can tell you, I'm a Christian mother of 2 daughters. I would not support anything whereby it encouraged violence or racism. I think that behavior is disgusting. I believe in a constitutionally Christian country, and I believe in the safety for all children. But I think that we will see the shadow state start to plant some agitators so it fits the narrative, because we see that this movement is amassing so many people that they cannot stop it now. And it's a problem, isn't it, Mike? I'm one of millions, but I'm a privately educated woman that is sober, barely leaves the house, and is really rather boring. I'm not a racist. I fight for safeguarding for all children, regardless of where they're from. I don't care. I care about children being safe. So all of a sudden, it's a problem when the establishment look at this movement and, hang about. It's not the man that, allegedly had mortgage fraud from Luton, which, used to be a football fan. We've now got people like myself who, how are you going to frame me? Like, come on, give me your best shot, because I'm not backing down and millions of people aren't backing down. The weaponization we're seeing from the mainstream media, from the police, from the government to brand good, hardworking patriots as far-right thugs and racists is so disgusting. We will start to see people take their own lives, because this is the kind of damage this rhetoric is doing.
And the thing that I found extraordinary, in addition to the Americans that were banned from coming, one man who was banned from coming, Dominik Tarczyński, is an MEP from Poland. He's an actual democratically elected representative of the Polish people. I don't even understand how they could do it. I mean, ironically, apparently, if we were still in the European Union, Starmer wouldn't have been able to ban him. But now we're not. He can. And I find it really quite chilling, actually, that something like this can happen.
In a way, though, I'm actually glad it's happened, because it's sent such a strong message to everyone around the world about the absolute tin pot dictator we're living under. He's a dangerous man. And the irony is that we see mainstream media brand Tommy Robinson as dangerous. Piers Morgan recently did a huge hate bait, clickbait segment all on how bad Tommy Robinson was. Have you ever heard Piers Morgan dedicate a whole show to the grooming gang survivors, or exactly what's going on in this country? I mean, it drives me nuts.
No, I know. Because, to be fair, you know as well as I do, Tommy Robinson and I don't exactly see eye to eye, but it's nothing to do with his politics, really. It's more to do with just a personality clash, and maybe one of these days it won't always be like that, I don't know. But he's rehabilitated his image to a large extent. He speaks very well whenever he speaks to anybody. He talks a lot of sense. He does actually urge everyone to go to these marches and be peaceful. He doesn't in any way kind of provoke anybody to do anything which wouldn't be lawful. So, I mean, I don't see why the because actually it's actually it doesn't help the cause of the people who don't like Tommy Robinson to keep going on about him.
Yeah, and also someone said to me, "Oh, you're a mouthpiece for Tommy Robinson." I'm like, no, my mouth is independent and I say what I want when I want. I'm not affiliated with anyone. But I always come back to the Tommy Robinson litmus test, because it's absolutely mind-blowing to me that people are more outraged and offended by Tommy Robinson than they are about the mass failure and cover-up of the grooming gangs.
Yeah.
If we bring this back to the point, and this is what they want to deflect from, there were police that abused children. And this is from the testimonies. We have seen such a wide cover-up regarding this. And all of the time that the likes of Piers Morgan are focusing on, the boogeyman Tommy, it's taking away from the fact that hundreds of thousands of children have been failed and continue to be failed. And this is across multiple governments. That swamp needs to be drained. And so the mainstream media, you've seen yourself, Mike, you've been at the end of the weaponization of that. I've removed myself from that situation because it's toxic. But it's so damaging that all of that time and energy that's gone into trying to discredit Tommy, I have never seen these media outlets dedicate the same amount of space regarding the failure of children. And there's nothing more important in society than keeping a child safe. Some of these children, that have been in care homes, were abused in care homes. And then part of the grooming ring would be the taxi driver. So when they were taken to school, they were still trapped by the same ring that was abusing them. People don't know the truth about this, and they don't know the truth about this because the mainstream media is compromised, the government is compromised, the police are compromised. And so we're in a situation where we're seeing so many front covers or, distorted coverage dedicated to a lad from Luton that's spoken about it and blown the alarm. It just blows my mind as a mother that we see people that are in editorial positions that are making the decision to squash the news of children being failed.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how they cover the event as it starts and runs through tomorrow. Because one of the stories I picked up on this morning, which is I've only really seen it in one paper, is this terrible story from Bournemouth of a young waitress who was knocked unconscious by a guy. And I was just talking to Richard Tice there, who said, a lot of people are claiming to be from Eritrea. He supposedly is an Eritrean asylum seeker, illegal migrant, who was living in a hotel in Bournemouth. Bournemouth has got about 3 or 4 of these asylum hotels. He punched her to the ground outside a nightclub because she, sort of refused his advances, if you like. But he's on the run. He got arrested by the police, but they let him go. And nobody knows now where he is. And she's on the page, it's Cleo Lake, her name, is 21 years old. Lovely looking young woman, saying, I'm scared for I don't know where this guy is. I'm worried about the fact that he might come after me. What's going on in this country?
Well, this is the problem. So we see the government issue DSMA notices. So for any of your viewers that aren't aware of that, this is called a D notice, which means that the government can censor certain information coming to you under the guise of national security. So when we read or hear these stories, you'll often hear a male of 34 in Bournemouth has allegedly assaulted a woman. They're taking out the ethnicity, they're stripping out lots of details, because if people knew the true extent of what was going on, we would see something like we've never seen in this country before. Women are scared to take their children out. Communities are being absolutely torn apart. And then it's the patriots, it's your grandma with the flag that's the baddie. I think not. And we are absolutely at a crucial point, because I can't even take my kids to the local town, Mike, near where I live, because last year there were Afghan migrants that were raping women. My friends are scared to leave their work and walk home. People have got rape alarms now. This is the problem we are seeing. But the problem is, without shows like yours, people don't know the true extent of the news, because the mainstream media lens is totally, owned by the government.
Well, this is it. I mean, the Sun have got that story, but the Mail doesn't have it. The Times doesn't have it. I haven't seen every story in the Telegraph, but I just haven't seen it anywhere, and I certainly haven't heard it on the news, on any radio program. So, and it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. It'll be happening everywhere, And as you say, they don't just say a man in Bournemouth. Sometimes they say a man from Bournemouth.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm working with some incredible independent citizen journalists, and what they are telling me is absolutely shocking. I wanted to go to Calais to film, and, I was stopped by other journalists because they said it is not safe. And they alleged that the male migrants, were carrying guns and knives. Now, obviously, this wasn't all of the migrants, but even one knife and one gun is one too many.
Yeah.
We are seeing so much happen on the ground that isn't reaching people. And we have to start listening to the whistleblowers. We have to start listening to the independent journalists because they are covering this. The coverage speaks for itself. You know, unlike the mainstream media, it doesn't need to be distorted to fit a certain narrative.
No.
The narrative speaks volumes.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to speak to Christian Drogan. I don't know if you know Christian, who's on the show a little bit later on with an organisation called Watchmen, and he went over for us, and we did a live report of him walking through one of these migrant camps in Calais. And it was horrendous. You know, people started chucking rocks at him. They started sort of trying to chase him out. He heard people firing guns. There were people buying and selling drugs. You know, and they were all. And I said to him at the end of the report, which was quite chilling, I said, "How many of those people will be in England in the next 2 months?" And he went, "All of them, absolutely all of them." Terrifying.
There's a photographer called the Nowhere Photographer. I would urge your viewers to follow him online. His work's incredible. He recently went over and they are throwing the women off the boats. So you will often see the boats full of men and a couple of women. We even saw AY Audits, the migrant hotel investigator. He had the story weeks ago, and Gauci reports before mainstream ran it, that women are being thrown overboard at sea. And, you know, you see these NGOs that are just, you know, making it so easy for these people to come over. And they claim they care about women and children. And then you see all these ridiculous celebrities in the Choose Love T-shirts. They haven't got a Scooby-Doo what's going on.
No.
Innocent women are being tossed aboard. And these male migrants will stop at nothing. These guns, these knives, they're coming into this country and we are in serious danger. And so I go back to that point that I would, you know, yes, you might not like Tommy. That's your personal opinion. But I think collectively, everyone that cares about this country and cares about the future of our children and safety of children, we need to move this conversation forwards and not play into, you know, that mainstream narrative of, oh, Tommy's a boogeyman, he's a thug. No, we are trying to save the future of this constitutionally Christian country that is rapidly not just eroding, but our safety is truly, we have never seen a threat like this before.
No, you're absolutely right. Lawrence, great to talk to you, great to see you. Would you be able to do a little report for us on the march, do you think, maybe, and that we could run on Monday?
Well, I would love to, but I'm actually hosting from Dan Wotton's studio in London.
How is the boy?
But I'll tell you what I'll do, Mike. I have a couple of brilliant citizen journalists. I will put them in touch with your producer.
All right, brilliant. That would be great. Fantastic. We'll have a terrific day and enjoy it.
Thank you.
Say hi to Mr. Wotton for me. And I'll see you soon. Thank you very much indeed. Laura the Insider, they're reporting in to us from her studio here in the UK, where, of course, she is going to be attending the United Kingdom rally tomorrow. Charlotte's messaged me to say Anna's doing it. Yeah, we know Anna's doing it, but, you know, we can do more than one thing, can't we? Because Anna might have to stop off and have some meat on the way round, you know, because, you know, she gets hungry. What about, did you say we've got somebody coming on next week? Pooch. Oh, yeah, okay. So is that the photographer that she was talking about?
Citizen journalist.
Citizen journalist. Okay, so we're doing that next week. Super chat not allowing me to say reform, says Mr. Gillespie. That's interesting. Well, maybe it's a banned word or something. You know, sometimes these words pop up for some reason. Burnham won't stand when he realises he won't win, says Mark. Well, I wonder whether he even gave it any thought, because this Makerfield by-election that he wants to have is very clearly not in his favour, you know. We're going to talk to Dr. Philip Kisley in a second, because he'll probably know the area better than us. But certainly from all of the information that we're looking at, and surely to heavens, Andy Burnham would have been looking at it as well before he decided which place he decided he wanted to go carpetbag in. It's very obvious that basically Reform would win a by-election. So what's he thinking? Who can say? Any more messages to read out, or should we go straight to Philip? Straight to Philip, who's probably been waiting patiently. Philip, very good morning to you, sir.
Great to see you, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. Very well indeed. What a week. You know, I mean, the hits just keep on coming. You're kind of going, you know, who's running it today? You know, it's almost like you just sort of pick your name out of a hat. You know, they put this bloke James Murray now in charge of the third biggest organisation in the world. Happens to be called the National Health Service. He doesn't know what a woman is. Has never done anything other than be a councillor and an MP. Right, all his life. That's it. It's a problem. And how, what's he going to say to the senior doctors who are currently plotting to go on strike? What's he going to say to the nurses? What's he going to say to the unions? I mean, it's hard to imagine how useless this government is.
Well, he'll probably just look dead-eyed at them and go, trans women are women. And that's all they have, these idiots. And you have to be frightened to think that these people who just will not face reality, who cannot understand reality, are going to be in charge of the NHS. It's life and death, isn't it, for some people? You were just talking about Burnham there, and if he's the most, the most popular Labour politician or Labour figure we have, then they are in real difficulty. They talk about Manchester and Manchesterism. As you know, I know the area really well. I'm from Manchester and I know Greater Manchester. And first of all, they were obliterated last week in the election. I mean, God, it's only last week, isn't it? We're talking about the local elections. It feels like a lifetime ago, mate. But they were obliterated, weren't they? So the centre is green completely. So you have a load of absolute woke lunatics living in the centre, young people in city centre flats. They loathe Labour. Okay, on the outskirts in Greater Manchester, you have places like Rochdale, Oldham, and Bolton, and these places are that they have one story, and that's grooming gangs that reign supreme and go unchallenged. For me, that's what Andy Burnham is about, and that and high taxation. Tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend. So I think we're in a real situation where we have basically a bunch of numpties going for the premiership, and if Andy Burnham's the best out of them, then Manchesterism, really, God help us.
Yeah, but this is the thing, isn't it? It's only in London and in the Westminster bubble where they don't really see anything at all, where they've got this kind of, vision of a place. They're probably misty-eyed about, the mill towns of the north, and, this is where our movement was built, and, it doesn't look anything like that now. And if you go there, as I have, you realise that not everybody is left-wing, not everybody is wearing a cloth cap with a whippet walking on a lead, and they're actually, fairly intelligent people who have decided that Labour is a waste of space, a southern soft party that doesn't represent them at all in any way, shape or form. But surely Burnham would have looked and seen that the Reform vote was so big around Manchester that trying to even consider running in a place like Makerfield is suicidal.
It's absolutely suicidal. I mean, you have to look at the makeup of the Ashton in Makerfield, it's called. So it's not particularly poverty-stricken, okay, but it's not in any way woke and chattering class. It's got a tiny Muslim population, I think of about 1%, something like that. So it voted wholeheartedly to leave the EU. So it's almost as if, can I pick the worst constituency? Can I pick someone where I'm going to be roundly rejected for the idiot that I am? Can I do that? Oh yeah, Makerfield. I'll have a go at Makerfield. That looks good for me. What kind of idiots are these? Who's advising them as well? This is the other thing, and it comes back to what you were saying, Mike, is these people have no experience of real life. They live in this bubble and they think they are the center of the universe. This man is a narcissist. You only have to look at him, King of the North, traveling down to London earlier this week to take over. I don't think so. And it really sums up for me the end of the Labour Party. The Labour Party died, I think, years ago when Reform took over. But now even the green-haired woke idiots have left them for Zach Polanski, the biggest charlatan in the country. How bad can it?
Yeah, who's such an ideologue that he didn't even manage to vote last Thursday, according to the front page of the Times. He didn't bother to vote.
And none of these people seem to bother about little things like tax, for God's sake.
No.
Whereas we're paying eye-watering amounts of tax all the time, and I'm getting emails from HMRC saying, "Oh, you'll want to do this, and here's a webinar for you to help you pay more." You know, and these people don't seem to care. You know, Angela Rayner, it's kind of, "Oh well, you know, I'll pay my tax now. Everything's okay," and I'll exactly tax dodgers galore. I'll pay my tax now. It's really like they live in a different world. And I mean, I walked through Manchester. I tweeted about it and it went viral, and there was a little bit of pushback on it. But I walked through Manchester. It was just about this time last year. And it was like a wasteland. Bearing in mind, I grew up in this place. This is the city of, you know, Morrissey, the Smiths, Oasis, Stone Roses, hedonism, celebration. You know, and it was awful. It was, you know, there was a woman defecating in a doorway. There were gangs all over the place, and it just felt Andy. But
well, Piccadilly. I mean, Piccadilly Gardens now is a sort of a. It's a social media hotspot because people film stuff there and put it out on a weekend. And when you look at it, you can't quite believe it. It looks like one of those crazy scenes from you know, Mad Max or something, or from, you know, one of those American inner cities where everybody's hopped up on fentanyl, you know. It doesn't look British at all, does it?
No, and this is the change they're delivering. You know, what does change look like? Well, it looks like Somali knife gangs. You know, it looks like my friend defecating in the doorway, and it looks like unbridled grooming gangs. You know, that really is, and you can look at London and you can see the same thing. We both know London really well, and especially around London Bridge and Westminster. You know, crime is through the roof, and you can't recognise it as a British place anymore. But the Labour Party have been decimated in these elections. West Streeting has nowhere near the 81 people he needs. Andy Burnham probably isn't going to get the seat he wants. Angela Rayner is a joke who can't even speak. I mean, it feels like we're in a terrible situation. Well, literally, she can't. You know what I mean?
No.
We're from the same place, and I'm from a working class background. And the minute you criticise her, you're either being misogynistic or a snob, and that's really not the case. But she cannot speak. You know what I mean? She literally cannot speak. So she.
Nothing to do with her being working class, by the way. It's just she's got a lot to do with her being a complete idiot.
Well, it's got a lot to do with it being completely thick, actually. I think I have to say it as it is, and a chancer and a charlatan. So if you look at the big figures on the stage at the moment, you've got Zach Polanski, and you've got her, and you've got a complete non-entity like West Streeting. You know, it feels like
I said this in the middle of I said this at the beginning of the week. You know, who on earth thought that West Streeting was in any way even capable of being Prime Minister? Never mind thinking of himself as the leader of a once great nation. You know, that's totally ridiculous. I mean, we put out a poll this morning and we got pelters from the audience because they went, "That's a crap poll. We don't like any of them." I'm like, yeah, but that's not the point of the poll. The point of the poll shows you that that's the situation we're in. Who would you like to have as Prime Minister? Keir Starmer, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham, or Angela Rayner? And incredibly, Wes Streeting actually has got 40% and he's in the lead. But that's how bad the choices are.
But I'm looking at that, and it's like a choice between the runs and constipation with piles thrown in as an extra option. You know what I mean? To make it a bit more uncomfortable. That's what it feels like. And you have to look back. The problem is it's a broader problem. And I don't know what viewers think about this. Maybe they'll put it in the chat. But it's a broader problem about we simply don't have talent going into politics anymore. And I'd like to know what they think, why they think it is. But if you look back, you think about someone like Enoch Powell, for example. He could speak, 14 languages? You know, Angela Rayner can't even speak English, for God's sake, right? And even people on the other side who I would ideologically disagree with, but who I would respect massively. People like Dennis Healey, for example, you know, who ran for the leadership once. And even people like Michael Foot, you know, yes, he wrote the longest suicide note in history, but he was an intellectual powerhouse. We don't have this kind of quality anymore. We have the lowest of the low. And for me, that's really, really worrying because we've got it bad now. We've got this automaton. We've got Shakir, who is just, you know, totally useless and has no political instinct whatsoever. But going forward, I look at it and I think they're gonna sink the ship.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, and it may well be that if, say, Burnham doesn't win the by-election, if he goes ahead and runs in it, and that we don't know yet whether there's going to be what the time frame is. Starmer, if he wanted to, could apparently delay it for a couple of months, maybe 3. We could potentially end up being stuck with Starmer for quite a bit longer, which, again, is part of the kind of illustration of how bad things are. That here's a guy who, in any other world, would have walked and just would have gone, look, okay, I get it. I don't, I don't have the support of my own party. I don't have the support of the country. Everything's gone terribly wrong. It's all my fault. So I'm going to walk away and give somebody else a go. Most normal people would do that, right? I don't understand the mentality of somebody like him who says, no, I think I'll just carry on.
Well, you're not a narcissist, and he is. I think there's a real case here for him being a total narcissist. But also, they can't even mount a coup in an efficient way. This is an absolute shambles, and it doesn't feel as though anybody's going to win or it's ever going to come to fruition. But it also tells us quite a lot about the nature of his premiership, and he is ruling by the day, probably by the hour now, and he's probably thinking, oh God, I've got a bit of a respite. I've got at least a few more days here or a few more weeks here. That's probably good as far as he's concerned. This is what we're reduced to. This is the kind of chaos that we're reduced to. All of these careerist imbeciles looking out for, absolutely, someone's just tweeted there, no talent, and that's absolutely the case. But while all of this is going on, while all of this psychodrama is going on, literally nobody is running the country, and that's what I'm really, really concerned about.
Yeah, and just to prove that it's not just us that think that the Labour Party and the Labour sort of, ruling classes have got it completely wrong. Have you seen, I don't know if you've seen this morning, who they think they might want to put in as the new mayor of Manchester if it's not Andy Burnham?
Who is it?
Have a look at this.
So I've just left my house and walking into the office, waking up obviously, seeing the news last night and the news this morning dominated by the horrific attacks within the Jewish community just about a mile from here. And was driving home from Salford City last night. I was driving actually to Salford City, going down a Littleton Road, seeing 60, probably 50 or 60 Union Jack flags. And on the way back I went down the parallel road, which is Bury New Road, which has got the Jewish community right at its heart, and they're out on the streets, defiant, not hiding or in fear. And I just kept thinking as I was driving home last night that we're all being turned on each other, and the division that's being created is absolutely disgusting, mainly created by angry middle-aged white men.
It's me and you, we've done it.
Yeah, well, also, ironically, he's also an angry middle-aged white man, but because he's angry about us, that's okay.
Well, that's okay. So we went to neighbouring schools, me and him. Okay. We literally went to schools next door to each other. I'm from Bury, he's from Bury. And I did a short video kind of riposte to that a while ago because I was just so infuriated. Yeah. And this the narrative, isn't it? This is why women and children, it's about safety and safeguarding. This is why women and children are at the mercy of grooming gangs, because people like him will lie and dissemble and deceive and blame absolutely anybody, particularly people that they don't like, i.e. me, you and the viewers, right? Just to cover over their suicidal view of the world, and the fact that they will absolutely and totally throw women and children under the bus, sacrifice them to their suicidal ideology. That is absolutely wicked. And I'll tell you what, I hope he does run for mayor of Manchester, because he will be decimated. He will be obliterated. They will just go.
But again, it shows you the paucity of thought inside of the minds of these idiots in Labour, because one, they've gone, oh, he's from the north, so he must be popular with people in the north, as if they're all some amorphous mass who all think the same thing. Oh, and great, he's a footballer. You know, Well, if you're a Manchester City fan, you're not voting for Gary Neville anytime soon, are you? You know, and they're so out of touch with reality that they're kind of going, he's great, isn't he? Look, everybody really likes him, because in their world, everybody really likes him. But in the real world, most people think he's a total, forgive me for saying this, bell end, I'm allowed to say. Thank you.
Look, it's quite simple, right? I don't want a footballer as a politician. I want a footballer or an ex-footballer to be a pundit, and a rubbish one at that if it's him. But I don't want footballers, pop stars, actors telling me what to think politically. Okay, I'm probably much more qualified to know what's going on than they are, and I would suggest that is true for the vast majority of the population. I don't want idiots in ivory towers telling me what to do, say, and think. And I certainly don't want football. I mean, you know, it's an insult to the intelligence that these people are telling us what to do, and it's an insult to the intelligence that Labour always coalesces around them. Mind you, they used to absolutely adore and put on a pedestal Russell Brand, didn't they? It always goes wrong for them, and they never learn. I'm not interested in what
they've got no judgment. That's the bottom line. They've got no judgment. Because, I mean, I seem to remember that speech that he made walking down the road there also involved him describing how he was upset because people were putting England flags up, right? And apparently some of them had appeared on one of his buildings. So he instructed his Serbian handymen who were there doing some building work to take the England flags down, but it was all right to leave the Serbian flags up that they'd put up because that was a nice thing to do. And you're kind of going, what sort of world are you living in, mate?
Well, and it's not only that as well. It's the fact that he's a champagne socialist. You said one of his buildings there, you know, he's preaching equity. He's telling us to, you know, put community first. He's, you know, we should all be the same and pay tons and tons of tax and not earn much apart from him. Yes. And these hypocrites are always the same, and I just refuse to listen to them. And the great thing that's happening at the moment is it's like everything else. People have many more choices now, and say what you want about reform. I know lots of people who watch this show support Rupert and support Ben. Fair enough. Okay, say what you want about reform, but it is a choice that we didn't have in the past. The two-party system is dead. Labour is gone. It's dead in the water. We were all dancing on the grave of the party last week, and it was wonderful. My only concern is what happens over the next 3 weeks to 6 months. I'm really worried about that. But we have choices that we can make now, and we need to consign them to the dustbin. And I think that goes for the Conservative Party as well.
Yeah, exactly right. We've got this in from Cherry Park. The low quality of our MPs is, in my opinion, at least partly a consequence of Parliament being televised. This gives these loathsome creatures the opportunity to grandstand and look good. Yeah, I mean, I remember the debate about whether or not to televise Parliament, and I was always very much in favour of it. And I think it's better that we can see them, actually. I'm not sure that in this day and age you can have the ability to put things behind closed doors and only kind of... I mean, I remember being in a court case years ago. I think it was Peter O'Toole, the actor's child custody battle. And I think one of his lawyers was trying to ban the press from covering the event, and so I was the only person there from the British press, and so the judge said, is there anybody here from the press who wishes to make a case? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, because the problem is, if you start banning people from attending what is effectively a public event, you will get people leaking to the press their version of what happened, and the only way to safeguard that from happening is to have us sitting here. And the judge in New Jersey Federal Court said, it's a very persuasive argument, but I'm afraid I'm not going to go along with it, and you're all banned. He kicked us all out. And of course, and then what happened was I was able to get Peter O'Toole to give me his side of the story, but there was no coverage of the actual trial. And if you didn't have people inside Parliament with cameras, I don't know whether that would be a good thing. I think it would be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would be a really bad thing. I think we desperately need to see what's going on, and we need to see how these idiots conduct themselves. I think there are a few things actually. I think the quality, just it's like quality in academia. It's like quality in all aspects of public life. They just don't want to go into it. One, because they get mercilessly attacked, and it is actually dangerous now. You know what I mean? Because we have this balkanized sectarian society that seems to think that going on the streets stabbing people is a political act. So there's an element of that the quality, just because you can't get anything done, so we won't bother. But there's something else as well, and it's that these creatures are bought up. It's all part of the capture of the institutions, isn't it? So we have three main problems in this country. One is mass immigration, one is Islamism, and one is identity politics. Those three things together are the big problems in this country. Yet all of these politicians, certainly on the Labour Party, certainly Lib Dems, Green, and much of the Conservative Party as well, are creatures of these problems. They are grown up in them. They are immersed in them. They are part of the problem, and they cannot identify what's wrong with this country, what's seriously wrong with this country, because they are part of the problem. So it needs a whole rehash, and it needs a whole different class of person to go into politics and get things done and change things. And it needs not to be the kind of political creatures that we've seen that for me is really summed up by West Streeting, on the one hand, or Andy Burnham on the other. It needs to be the polar opposite of those people. It needs to be small businessmen. It needs to be sole traders. It needs to be people with experience of life. It needs to be what's been happening in the revolutions in the councils around our country. I'm just up in the north here, and Wakefield is probably a really good example where Labour were obliterated, completely, totally obliterated, and Reform are now the council there. So I think something that it might well be that a revolution is taking place, and we've seen the beginning of it in the local elections. But I hope it carries on, and I hope we just sweep away all these ineffectual and dangerous idiots we have in Parliament, and have essentially a new era.
A new broom, absolutely. A couple of interesting comments here. One from Cookie Boy says, I just watched the Leeds United game on Sky and how they turn the sound down when the fans start chanting about what they think of Sky TV when Gary Neville's on it. And also, Neil says, makes me laugh that Neville comes out with those comments while Man United co-owner Sir Jim talks about uncontrolled immigration. Yeah. Neville kept his gob shut as he wants to be an advisor on the new stadium. Pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
Well, they're all the same, aren't they? Gary Lineker, Gary Neville, they're all the same. They'll preach virtue, they'll preach identity politics, and then they'll take the Qatari dollar.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Talk about LGBTQI+, all of this stuff, and we're all terribly racist, and it's all awful and awful and awful. And then they'll be in bed with, the most brutal of Middle Eastern regimes. Yes. And it's all about hypocrisy. It's riddled with hypocrisy. Yeah. Rid of it.
I know, it's absolutely shocking. Great to talk to you, Dr. Philip Kizzy. We've got a second poll here. This is who should be the next mayor of Manchester. Bez from the Happy Mondays, Ken Barlow, Noel Gallagher, or Peter Kay. Peter Kay's getting it at the moment. That's quite surprising, isn't it?
Well, do you know what? I think it should be a combination of Noel and me, right?
Yes.
Because I know a little bit about politics, so put me on.
Yeah,
all right.
Just don't give it to Liam, whatever you do.
Don't give it to Liam, no.
Brilliant. Great to see you, Dr. Philip Kisley. Fantastic guy. Brilliant ideas and fantastic views as well. And a proper northerner. This idea that, Andy Burnham's king of the north. He's king of North London, is what they should call him, with those bloody eyebrows and that ridiculous outfit where he looks like an extra from New Order. You want to see him dancing about with some boy band rather than having him run anything. And, he's so stupid. He's picked a place to run in a by-election against Reform, which Reform are going to win. And what sort of idiot does that? Extraordinary. Now, we've got some great news. Bishop Kai Dewar is in the house. He's here. And he's going to be coming on very, very shortly to give us his sermon live in person. What a treat for us. Also, we're going to be speaking to Stuart Walton. Is it Walton? Yeah. From the Scottish Union for Education. Waiton. Is it Waiton? I see an I there, but I thought that was a misprint. Is it Waiton? Anyway, Stuart's waiting Get it? Yeah. To come on next. But should we do a bit of a meltdown first?
Yeah.
Let's do meltdown time. There was some consternation this morning on the show when we put out a poll in which we asked this question: who would you like to be the next Prime Minister? Would you like it to be Keir Starmer? Would you like it to be Angela Rayner? Would you like it to be Andy Burnham? Or would you like it to be Wes Streeting? And of course, the consternation was caused because so many of you said, we don't want any of them. It's a terrible poll. What are you doing a poll on that for? Well, we're doing a poll on that because that is the reality of where we find ourselves today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid to say. Because Keir Starmer, the man who will not be budged out of his seat in Downing Street, is facing a challenge from Andy Burnham and from Wes Streeting and from Angela Rayner. And the reason we did the poll is because we wanted to illustrate just how awful the choices are for Britain. Because Britain deserves better, doesn't it? We deserve better than Andy Burnham, a man who twice tried to be leader of the Labour Party and failed. We deserve better than Angela Rayner, a woman who plundered the trust fund of her own disabled son to buy a flat and who then didn't pay the stamp duty on it, avoiding tax. We deserve better than Keir Starmer, a man who has messed up everything he's ever touched since he's been in charge. He's messed up the NHS. He's screwed up the borders. He's completely killed off the armed forces. He can't make the economy work. There is nothing that he can do right. And yet, he's sitting there because nobody can get rid of him. Wes Streeting yesterday fired the starting gun on his own campaign into his own head because he went to see the Prime Minister for 16 minutes, told him he was going to resign as Secretary of State for the Health Service, the Department of Health, I should say. And then almost immediately, his story was overtaken by Andy Burnham, who said he wanted to run in a by-election because he'd managed to force a Labour MP to step down from the seat of Makerfield, which currently is a Reform stronghold. These people haven't got the brains between them to blow their own brains out. People, this is George Galloway saying, if your brains were made of dynamite, you wouldn't have enough to blow your head off. They're so stupid and they're so incompetent. They're so unpatriotic. This weekend, the United Kingdom march is going to take place. Will there be any Labour MPs there? No. Why? Because they're frightened. They're frightened to be seen with people they regard as far right. These are people who have banned elected members of Parliament from other countries from coming to our country to celebrate the United Kingdom march because they're so frightened. So I'm sorry that the poll has been disappointing. I'm sorry that Andy Burnham thinks that he's so powerful that he can parachute himself into a constituency and win, because he can't. And how arrogant does he have to be to think that being a carpetbagger is not something that everyone will see through, as we've heard from the people of Manchester. Andy Burnham isn't the answer. People don't think he's brilliant. People don't think he's great. The Labour government think Gary Neville's a good idea to be Mayor of Manchester. I mean, for heaven's sake. A man universally detested, even by Manchester United fans. They don't like him because he's a smart ass. He's a champagne socialist. And he's a horrible, bitter and twisted individual. So we are where we are. But you can't blame me for being a bit disappointed that the choice we've got is either Keir Starmer staying put because nobody can manage to dislodge him, or one of the other three. As they say in the Daily Mail today, you don't really want Angela Rayner making decisions at 3 a.m. after what she's been up to, talking to the White House, talking to the President of the United States. You really don't want that. Wes Streeting, what has he ever done to deserve to run the country? Nothing. What qualification does he hold? He doesn't. His own seat will probably be lost in the next election. He's only got a majority of 500 and something. And then, of course, you've got Keir Starmer, who won't leave, refusing to leave like some recalcitrant lodger. No wonder they brought in a change to the Rental Act so that you can't kick people out. Who knew it was going to be him? So I'm afraid the future looks a bit bleak. The only thing we should be doing now is having a general election. Andy Burnham in 2022 said to the Tories, if you're going to change over the Prime Minister, you need to have a general election. So presumably, if he does manage to somehow get there by hook or by crook, then he will have a general election. You know and I know that's what the people want. You know and I know that the people want to kick this useless Labour government out and at least have a chance at voting somebody else in, which would probably be reform, which is what this country needs, something different, right? That's my meltdown for the day. Now it's time to speak to Stuart Waiton, who's from the Scottish Union for Education. Stuart, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Now, I'm led to believe that you are a senior lecturer in sociology and criminology. You're an author, you're a journalist. You're interested in the regular, everyday policing of this country of ours, which is interesting because tomorrow, here in London, and I know that it's not in your neck of the woods, but here in London, we'll have the United Kingdom march, at which point the police will be using facial recognition cameras against the ordinary people of this country. But what they won't be doing is using them against the people marching around in favour of a free Palestine, which seems a bit of a two-tier system to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's one of the subjects I'm quite interested in is the two-tier thing, because what if you say two-tier to most of my students, they think what you mean by that is that we live in a systemically racist society, and that's why you have two-tier policing. So I always like to mess with their heads a bit by turning that one upside down.
Do you know, I guess for all of us, I've got teenage kids and, I've got older kids as well. And each one of the different kind of sets of ages has a slightly different view of the world, Is it because of the way they've been taught? Is it because of the way the schools have kind of prepared them for life?
Yeah, I think actually one of the things, so I'm from Newcastle and I was brought up in a world where everyone was Labour. Well, that's not entirely true, but most people were Labour.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like myself would have grown up not liking Margaret Thatcher and being a socialist. Now, I imagine that's not where you came from, but I don't know. But anyway, I think the point about that is that we grew up, whatever you think about that tradition, we grew up with a tradition and a connection to politics, which actually connected us to history in the past.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things today is that young people have got no real connection to politics at any meaningful level and no connection with the past. So modern trends are things that have a much greater impact than they might have done historically, and crazy trends and emotional things like the Greens. I think the thing that's fascinating about the Greens is that they're really a party of emotion. You can't have a rational discussion with the Greens because there's nothing rational there. It's a kind of emotive, virtuous feeling of goodness and kindness and all this kind of thing. So you can't actually have a discussion.
It's not universal kindness, is it? Because I remember Zach Polanski doing an interview the other day in which he said, we don't really try and persuade right-wingers that we've got it right and they've got it wrong. So we'll just have to construct a society without them. And I kind of went, sorry? What does that even mean? What, you're going to put people in internment camps, re-education camps? What?
Well, that's
probably.
Talking of re-education camps, that is what schools are like in Scotland. So, for example, I thought I'd pull this up for you just for the fun of it. So I helped set up the Scottish Union for Education, and the strap line is education, not indoctrination.
Yeah.
And if people are interested, they should check it out online. We've got a Substack, and what happens in Scotland. It's a bit like we say what happened in America eventually ends up here. What happens in Scotland potentially ends up in England. It is one of the most low countries. So this is the General Teaching Council, the standard for headship. So this is how to become a headship. And it reads, engaged, reflective, empowered and skilled teachers and learners acknowledge Scotland's place in the world, our history, our difference and diversity, our unique natural environment and our culture based on social justice. And then they say the professional standards outlined as a commitment to social justice. Right? So they have embedded in a document which trains head teachers an ideology which nobody voted for, which is an ideology that is supported by people like the Greens. And that is the standard for headship in Scotland. but if you want to become a head teacher, which essentially means that the framework for becoming a head teacher and a leading educationalist in Scotland is ideological, political, and it's written down. It's in black and white. If you are conservative or even just not a social justice person, there is almost no chance at all you will become a head teacher. And quite likely you will not become a teacher because the framework for teacher training is exactly the same, which is it's an absolute scandal. And so this is one of the things we try and highlight and campaign around.
And try and counsel. Yeah, I mean, you were saying, perhaps I didn't have the same experience, when I was younger as you, and probably that's true. But my father, funnily enough, was a sort of union organiser in Fleet Street. And so he was practically a communist at one point when I was growing up. But I don't remember going to school and having like in-depth conversations about party politics. You didn't get like what my kids used to get when they were in school. They're both left now, but they'd be told stuff about climate change every day. They'd be told, don't buy the Daily Mail, because it's a Tory newspaper. Don't vote Tory because they're horrible people. It was kind of before the days of reform, so they didn't really. I can imagine that's probably even worse now. But it wasn't as if I didn't leave secondary school with a kind of view on which party I might vote for in the first election that I was going to take part in. And I was kind of, being young, I relatively leant to the left, but as soon as I went to further education college, we had a Marxist economics lecturer, so I decided to start up the Young Conservative Society just to piss him off, And that was that was the beginning of my political journey. It was more about annoying people than anything else, But nowadays, it's a kind of amorphous view, isn't it? If you're a kid, if you don't think like everybody else, you get sort of blackballed, effectively.
Yeah, it's very difficult now. You see, one of the things which I think it's kind of confusing, because at one level you think, well, how can education become so politicized, and yet nobody seems to half notice it or do anything about it? And I think it's because it's become a kind of, it's like a new morality. So the idea of being kind is about being inclusive, about being into diversity, about welcoming all that. It's a kind of multicultural, pro-trans, liberal in a kind of soft but also kind of political way. And it becomes a form of niceness. And that's what the teachers are like that, especially female teachers to some extent. And also that becomes a framework for how you develop guidance policies, the ethos of the school. And it was fascinating. I was interviewing Catherine Burble-Singh, who runs that unbelievably fantastic.
Great, yeah. She's brilliant.
Absolutely mind-bogglingly great. And I was trying to ask her about what are your values? And it was so interesting because she said, well, our values about being kind. And I said, well, that's funny because that's what the progressive says. And she says, yeah, but the difference is when I say and we say be kind, what we mean is actually do kind things, right? And do kind things for your neighbors, do kind things for your parents. Don't think about yourself first and foremost. Think about other people. Whereas the be kind of the kind of social justice framework is much more about diversity. It's much more about respect for me and my values, and it's much more of a kind of narcissistic, self-occupied, politicized idea of being kind, where you never have to actually do anything. You never actually engage with your community. You don't have to stand up on the bus to give it to another person. You don't have to help your parents with things. Put other people before yourself. It's a much more self-referential perspective, and I think that's why it takes off so well, because it does become a new kind of ethos, morality framework for thinking that you're a nice person that also links with all these awful political ideas. And that's essentially the framework of Scottish education at the minute. Which, as you say, it's sinful. I didn't know parents voted for. I had a fair idea. But in those days, parents wouldn't tell their kids, or at least where I was from, parents wouldn't tell your kids, or a lot of them, who they voted for, because they thought, well, it's not something that you should take. The idea that you would even have any idea who your teachers voted for would be unimaginable. That's their private business. Whereas now it's, just straightforward, come into the class, start preaching stuff about Palestine, this, that, and reform. I mean, my daughter's in a college in Glasgow now, and after the vote, the two teachers on the day came in and were kind of spitting and swearing and all the rest of it about reform, and this is the takeover, this is the 1930s returning, and all the rest of it.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
No idea that there might be people in that class who actually might have voted for reform.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And
beyond
the result, I'm going to play a couple of clips actually here, Pooch. I think we should do these. Samita Kumar, an MSP, who was sworn in the Scottish Parliament, I think yesterday. Have a look at this.
मैं स्मिता कुमार शपथ लेती हूँ कि मैं कानून के अनुसार महामहिम राजा चार्ल्स, उनके उत्तराधिकारियों और उनके वंशों के प्रति निष्ठावान और सच्ची वफादारी निभाऊंगी। ईश्वर मेरी सहायता।
Sworn in Hindi. Now, you're shaking your head, I'm shaking my head, I'm going, how is this possible? There will be people like those lecturers you've just spoken about who would say, oh, that's because you're racist. No, it's not. It's the Scottish Parliament. It's not the Indian Parliament. It's not, you know, the Bangladeshi Parliament. She's speaking Hindi in a country which is English. You know, that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think you should always try and turn it around. When they say things like, you're only shaking because you're a racist, you have to say, well, why is it, what is it that you want to celebrate about other cultures so much? Because for me, as far as I can see, it's not really about your celebration of other cultures. It's that you hate your own society and your own people. You know, that's really what's happening. You know, when you see everything as racism, what you're saying is the people of Scotland are crap. Right? That's what they are. Your parents are crap. Your grandparents are crap. Everything about this country is garbage. And they're not celebrating. They don't know anything about, you know, Hindu culture. They don't know anything about it. They're not interested in it. They don't go away and read and, you know, decide, oh, I'm going to travel this and all the rest of it. 99.9% of them don't. It's just an internal sense of distaste for your own society and your own people, and that's what it is. It's an inverted form of racism, and it's that they are the new bigots. That's just the reality. They are the bigots.
I mean, I haven't been to India for a long time, but the last time I was in India, funnily enough, the working business language was English. So they're not even, I mean, you wouldn't be sworn in the Indian Parliament in Hindi because you'd probably upset the Muslims. So they'd go, no, just do it in English. It's a lot simpler, you know? That's the irony.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's very, very unfortunate, but Scotland is and remains, because of the national question up here, which means the SNP just keep getting voted in, the worst policies can develop. But it becomes fascinating because they're insulated, they develop the most mad policies and mad approaches. And so everything goes so far. And especially that makes my job as sort of critical sociologist much easier because I can kind of just point out and say, look, this is mad.
Right. Because
there's
it
madness happening here. Because it is, genuinely is.
Totally. Well, it's great to talk to you. Brilliant to meet you. And we must do more of this as well because Scotland, my parents are originally from Glasgow, so I've got a great love for Scotland and I'm terrified of what's going on up there. But the Scottish Union for Education is what people should go and look for if they want to hear more of your thoughts and your ideas. Absolutely brilliant. Great stuff. Stuart Wayson, thank you very much indeed for talking to us, and we'll talk to you again very soon. I'm very excited now because I'm about to meet the Bish. He's here. Kai Dewar, all the way from Welsh Wales, as we like to call it, Pembrokeshire. Very good morning to you, sir.
Fantastic.
How good to
be
see
with
you. Brilliant to have you here. I presume you're up in town for the rally tomorrow.
I am speaking at the rally tomorrow.
Speaking at the rally, we've got a clip actually which I want to play people because it's absolutely brilliant from last year. Should we do a bit of news first, Pooch, from Fiona MacLeod, who works on a Friday for us?
Good morning. I'm Fiona MacLeod. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is under intense pressure to resign after poor local and devolved election results. Health Secretary Wes Streeting has quit, stating he has lost confidence in Starmer's leadership, joining other ministers who have stepped down. Over 80 Labour MPs have called for Starmer to go, with rivals like Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham positioning themselves. Burnham has a clearer path after an MP resigned his seat to trigger a by-election. Starmer's fighting to survive amid cabinet turmoil. Other headlines: a new deal with France aims to curb small boat crossings in the Channel. Police warnings: don't swim at most new river bathing sites on the Thames and elsewhere due to pollution. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you later, alligators.
I love Fiona MacLeod. I think she's great. I think we should have her every day.
Yeah, I like
you know,
her too.
Just
Mike,
get rid
I've
of
got
it.
a quick comment here.
Oh, go on.
Have a look at this.
Pooch is not alone. I've got a thing for Rachel Reeves. Goodness me. Bridget Phillipson and that Labour MP who looks like Cruella de Vil. Which one's that? Is that May I Burn in Hell? Well, as long as it's not Angela Rayner. I mean, goodness gracious me. Right, so listen.
Looks like I'll be dishing out absolution for somebody.
You may well have to, yeah. Get the rosary beads out and the holy water. Kai Dewar is here, the bishop from Wales, of course. Fantastic man. He's our official bishop, if you don't mind me saying so. He's here for the United Kingdom rally. Have a look at his speech from last year, and this will send chills down your spine, I promise you.
Because this day we rise. Our sons and daughters are awakened. Our parliament trembles. Let your voice, O God, thunder again in our streets, again in our homes, and in the hearts of all our people. Raise up men and women of courage, just like this man here, unbending in truth, unyielding in justice, unwavering in his love. Today, O God, we stand on our own Bannockburn. We stand on our Agincourt. We will not bow to tyranny. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not be silent any longer. As others have cried, so this day we cry. They may malign us, they may suppress us, but they will never silence us. They will never take our liberty. Crown this people with courage, O God. Strengthen those who stand before you with hope. Clothe all who are weak with your power. Let justice roll down like rivers.
Absolutely brilliant, that. Fantastic. And the weather was a bit interesting that day, wasn't it?
Oh, when I took to the stage to start my speech, it was absolutely howling down with rain, as you can see in the video. I was soaked through it, but you know, the boss decided to turn the tap off just as I got to amen and the sun came out.
Well, that just goes to show that divine intervention is indeed possible, right? And what's different, do you think, this year? Because obviously a lot of people last year came, and I think the general view of, shall we say, the establishment was they were quite surprised at just how many people were there. And they didn't want to admit how many people were there, and they didn't really want to acknowledge that there was an awful lot of just ordinary British people who had gone because they wanted to show up.
I think they're going to be even more surprised tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because since then, you know, our beloved Prime Minister, and
for the moment,
and the government have managed to upset a whole lot more people now.
I mean, I was saying this earlier. We were speaking to Lauren the Insider. You know, how the hell do they get away with banning elected members of the European Parliament? You know, the guy from Poland, Dominic, who's been told he can't come, and they're all threatening to sue, which I hope they do actually, because
well, they banned the Flemish MP as well, didn't they?
That's right. There's a couple of them, and you know, these are elected representatives of their own people.
Well, they're classified as, we're all far-right agitators now, aren't
I
we?
know, but they're not going to get away with it, because I mean, look what happened last Thursday. The far-right agitators, you know, took over basically, because we are not far-right agitators. We are simply people with common sense. I mean, somebody's just put in, I think it was Lord Viking, says the Bishop of Common Sense. We're just talking common sense. There's nothing, you know. I was just showing a woman being sworn into the Scottish Parliament there in Hindi. You know, the country's gone mad.
In her defence, that was the Scottish Parliament, and you and I both know half the Glaswegians would have sounded like that just talking English.
Yes, very true. Absolutely right. But you know, I mean, maybe better that than Gaelic. You know, because they spend a bucket load of money on Gaelic speaking up there.
Well, we had it
and
in
there's only
Wales.
60,000 people that speak it.
Yeah, we've had it in Wales.
Yeah.
The Welsh government have spent millions on, you know, every pupil now in school has to learn Welsh and all that lot. And when I was in school, the only other people that spoke Welsh, bar the handful in Wales that were the people that lived in Patagonia.
Yeah, exactly. Because they've also built this whole business, haven't they? This whole enterprise, right? So if you want to work for the BBC in Wales, speak Welsh, you've got a job.
Yeah.
You want to work down at the local Senedd now, not the Assembly. You know, if you speak Welsh, you've got a job.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's why people do it, presumably.
Well, I think there's a lot of it in that. My wife is South African, works in a local school. She's having to learn Welsh to work in the school. Now, I've got a cousin who's Pembrokeshire born and bred, moved to Nottingham, become a headmaster of an English-speaking school in Nottingham.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a job in Wales because he didn't speak Welsh.
That's amazing, isn't it? And Pembrokeshire used to be known as kind of, you know, Little England in Wales, didn't it? Because it was full of English holidaymakers.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's a very strange world we live in now. But do you get the sense, say, for example, comparing last year to this year and the march and the rally, does it feel different to you? Does it feel as though there is something changing?
It feels different to me in two ways. One, I'm a little pensive about tomorrow. There seems to be a lot more focus on creating, what should we say, disruption.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have a lot of concerns about what will other organisations and other people will try to do to feed into the media narrative, into the government narrative. However, when I put that concern aside, the hope that I have, because this one being, I think because this one is sandwiched between two key global events, last week's election, which was earth-shattering for this country, and then our sister nation, the US, begins its 250th anniversary celebrations the day after on Sunday. I think this is a really defining moment in our nation. And this sleeping giant that is Britannia, the silent lion, as I've called it for the last 20 years, is awake and beginning to roar. And it's getting to the point that, you know, government are not going to be able to ignore that many people anymore.
No, they can't. And that's where they've got it so wrong, haven't they? I mean, we were talking on a more kind of, I suppose, micro scale about Manchester and about Andy Burnham and the kind of the arrogance of a man who seems to think that he is, because he's called the King of the North, he actually is. Well, he isn't the King of the North. And he's opted to go for a seat in his area of Manchester, which he's probably not going to win. You know, but he didn't think about that, it would seem, because he wasn't aware of the fact, presumably, that all of the areas around the place that he's running in, what's it called, Makerfield, are all reform. They all went reform last Thursday.
I think there's another thing that nobody's really taken into consideration, and something in that whole story to do with Burnham that we're not talking a lot about, the fact that he hasn't been given the approval by the NEC to run yet.
No.
So there's still, the fact that he's prepared to step aside as Mayor of London, causing a by-election there as well, to try and run in a seat that he's most likely going to lose.
Yeah.
We haven't had the approval to whether or not he can even run yet.
No.
So,
well, also, Starmer hasn't approved yet the timing of the by-election.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, potentially he could be sitting there in August saying, well, you can have your by-election in September or whatever. But it's just the arrogance of this kind of political class that we seem to have now, who think they know better than we do what the world is like.
The whole arrogance of them was on full display this week, but there is no way this government should have made the King give the state opening of Parliament speech.
No.
Not with everything that's going on and the turmoil. And I know that the night before, you know, the palace was back and forth for hours with various phone calls, and the 6-word warning that came out of the palace, don't bring us into it, is in, you know, that's the palace basically saying, get your crap together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was watching the King's speech, the look on the King's face when he was reading some of it.
He didn't look happy, did he?
I was wondering, because, you know, the King normally gets a little advanced review, but I was wondering whether or not that speech that he read was the actual one that he saw to review. I think they were last-minute changes for Starmer to try and save his neck.
Yeah.
Because I think about the first one that they gave when, the King suddenly read out the fact that they were going to remove all the life peers, the hereditary peers.
Yeah.
And you could see by the look on his face, he knew nothing about that and was not happy at all. Because we mustn't forget, this government has just removed the King's constitutional representatives from the House of Lords.
Yes.
The Earl Marshal, the Lord Great Chamberlain, they're constitutional officers of state. They're the King's representative in Parliament, and they no longer sit in the Parliament.
Yes. And that's the thing with these Labour governments, isn't it? You know, without any further ado, Tony Blair suddenly reinvented the legal system in Britain, and nobody kind of noticed that it was happening. And suddenly,
he was doing it so that he could turn us into a federal republic and become president.
Exactly. And suddenly the Supreme Court emerged out of nowhere, and the old-fashioned Master of the Rolls job and the House of Lords being the highest court in the land all disappeared overnight.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was like, actually, no, you can even go beyond the Supreme Court now. You can go to a European court.
Yeah.
And I think that was the beginning of the end of British sovereignty, effectively.
I completely agree with you. And the Supreme Court has violated the very essence of what it was set up to do, as much as people might not understand the workings, agree with it, disagree with it. When the Supreme Court ruled that Johnson's pre-Rogan Parliament was illegal, for the first time ever, our highest court in the land had acted in an openly political manner against the government. That would have never happened had we not had a highly politicised Blairite following Supreme Court.
Yes, indeed. A lot of people have said to me this week as well that one of the things that's changed the makeup of Britain and the makeup of how it's run is that everybody's a lawyer now. You know, there are too many lawyers. And I remember people, when I lived in America, saying that you couldn't do anything with that. You couldn't move without a lawyer. No. You know, I had to rent an office once. And it was in Manhattan, and I went to see the landlord, and I was like, that's fine, that seems to be okay, can we sign? He said, no, you need to have a lawyer. I said, well, I don't want to pay a lawyer. Why do I need a lawyer? He said, because if you don't have a lawyer and you sign this document and you later say that I, somehow hoodwinked you, I will have no defence because you didn't check with somebody else. And so they sort of created this business. And the same here now. All politicians are lawyers. Keir Starmer's a lawyer, doesn't do anything without
worst
reference.
kind of lawyer as well.
Worst kind of lawyer. Because he's always looking for a law to stop him from doing something. Yeah. He's not using the law well, he's using it badly,
Well, I think the days of good quality politicians are now behind us. The problem is that we have this professional political class that, like you said, they're lawyers or they've studied politics to go into politics as a career. I miss the days of old-fashioned politicians that have, worked
passionate people.
And then gone into it for the bettering of the country. Even now, looking at those that are challenging Starmer for the leadership or going to, they're all basically professional politicians. I mean, they are scraping the bottom of the barrel for candidates.
Yeah.
I've heard that they're going to dig Neil Kinnock up and give him another crack at the whip.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I saw this morning, or late last night, James Murray, who's never done a decent day's work in his life. He came straight out of university, went into being a councillor, and then went into Mayor Sadiq Khan's office to run the housing department or something. He's now running the NHS. Yeah. He's now the Secretary of State for Health. And you go, he's a pipsqueak. I'm sorry to use that word, but you just think, how does this happen?
Well, see, if I became Prime Minister, heaven forbid, I'd change the whole system. You'd have to be at least 40 years of age to qualify to run for Parliament. Right. And if you became a cabinet minister or a member of the cabinet, you would have to have a working knowledge or a qualification in the department that you've been given oversight. So if you weren't a high-ranking nurse or a doctor, you don't get to run healthcare. If you've never taught, you don't get education. If you've never served in the armed forces, you're not running defence. Yeah. The moment we start cleaning that out, and we start ridding ourselves of professional politicians, the better. The problem, I think, right now, and I was talking to Liz Truss about this the other day, is I don't think the British public realise how deep the rot is set in the political class and the kind of measures that we as a nation are going to have to go through to get rid of that. Yeah. But in the long run, it'll be worth it if we can get 650 plus people that can run for Parliament on the proviso that they're sacrificing 10 years of their life to change the direction of this nation.
Absolutely right, because one of the things I think that most people don't know about is the ridiculous overspending that goes on in any government department, the amount of people involved in what they do, the numbers have grown exponentially. I mean, we had a guy in here a few weeks ago who came from a background of health and safety, and it sounds like a boring story, but actually wasn't. He was one of the guys who was charged with making sure that, sofas and mattresses and things did not have toxic chemicals in them, so that if there was a fire, there was fire retardation, all that sort of thing. Anyway, he said he used to work inside the Department of Trade and Industry, I think, and he had a team of about 10 people. And he said they moved it into another department. He said, "Do you know how many people are there now?" And I went, "Well, I don't know, 50, 500." Yeah. 500 people to do the job that 10 people or 12 people used to do.
But frontline services pay the price for it.
Yeah.
Where I live in Pembrokeshire, our local A&E is desperately short of qualified nurses.
Right.
The reason they can't have them is they haven't got the budget for it, because they're paying diversity officers twice what a nurse gets in salary.
Well, 50% of the people who work in the NHS don't do anything to do with health. They don't do anything clinical. They're pen pushers, or they're DEI officers, or whatever they are, HR officers. What they should do is get rid of all of them and maybe use just a quarter of that money to spend on clinicians, on nurses and doctors.
What astounds me is the fact that hospitals used to run perfectly well without DEI officers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So perhaps
right.
we should go back to that model.
Well, we could do that, couldn't we? Absolutely extraordinary. That's a magnificent cross, by the way, that I'm just
Thank you
looking
very
at.
much.
Does it have any particular significance?
It's called the Apostles' Cross. So the 5 amethyst is obviously the stone of the bishop, but the center represents Christ, and then the 4 corners of the cross represent the four gospel writers.
Oh, okay. It's lovely. Well, listen, it's time for your sermon, isn't it? So I'm going to hand over to you. I'm going to wash my hands of the show for the next 5 minutes, and the bishop will take over. And so please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Well, I think we'd all agree it's been one of those weeks that, to a lot of us, has felt heavier than most. Last week's local elections and the parliamentary elections in Scotland and Wales have delivered a clear verdict for us from the British people. The ground has definitely shifted. The old certainties that we have become accustomed to are cracking, and Britain is definitely speaking, loudly, restlessly, and with an ever-growing impatience. So, into this moment comes the Church's readings for today. 2 readings that feel almost uncannily timed for our present troubles. First, from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 18. Paul the Apostle has arrived at Corinth, a prosperous, cosmopolitan, deeply divided port city. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a modern globalized city, full of traders, sailors, competing philosophies, sexual license, political intrigue, and every ideology under the sun. The Apostle Paul preaches Christ crucified and risen. It provokes opposition, and the atmosphere in Corinth grows tense. Then one night, the Lord appears to St. Paul in a vision and says these words that I want you to hear clearly this morning, because they cut through the noise of our own political moment. Do not be afraid. Go on speaking. And do not be silent, for I am with you. No one will attack you and harm you, for I have many people in this city. St. Paul obeys. He stays 1 year and 6 months teaching the word of God among them. When his Jewish opponents eventually drag him before the Roman proconsul Gallio, accusing him of promoting illegal worship, Gallio refuses to get involved. If this were a matter of serious crime or wrongdoing, he says, I would have reason to listen to you. But since it concerns questions about words and names and your own law, settle the matter yourselves. I will not be the judge of such things. And then Gallio throws them out of his court. The case collapses, and Paul continues his mission unhindered. My brothers, my sisters, there is a profound encouragement here for us in 2026 Great Britain. Our country can sometimes feel like Corinth, prosperous in parts, anxious everywhere, morally confused, politically fragmented, with loud voices on every side trying desperately to silence dissent. For years now, Many ordinary people, the quiet majority who just want secure borders, affordable energy, decent schools, free speech, and a nation that puts its own citizens first, they have felt muzzled, told that certain truths are hate speech, that noticing demographic change is far right, that questioning net zero timelines or mass migration economics makes you a bigot. Well, last week's ballot box results was a roar against that. Millions said, we will not be silent any longer. And the message from the Acts of the Apostles is direct. Do not be afraid. Keep speaking. The Lord has many in this city, many in this country. More than the commentariat, the broadcasters, and the Westminster bubble would have you believe there are. Decent, hard-working, patriotic Britons who love their families, their communities, their historic nation, and people who are tired of being lectured by an elite that seems increasingly detached from reality. My brothers, my sisters, you might not believe it, but your vote mattered. Your persistent calm, truthful conversation at the school gate, in the pub, on the factory floor, in the letters pages of newspapers, and yes, right here on the airwaves. It all matters because courage is contagious. When St. Paul spoke, others found their voice too. When ordinary people speak truth again, the atmosphere of a nation changes. The Gallios of our day, the institutions, the regulators, the corporate HR departments, they often discover they don't actually have the stomach for the fight when push comes to shove. And now we turn to the gospel from St. John, chapter 16. Jesus is speaking to his disciples on the night before his blessed passion. He is preparing them for the darkness that is coming. And he says this, Amen, amen. I say to you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn into joy. A woman in labor has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has given birth to the child, she no longer remembers the anguish for the joy that a human being has been born into the world. So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. My brothers, my sisters, that is not cheap optimism. Jesus does not deny the pain. The cross is real. The hours of apparent defeat, when it looks as though the world has won, they are real. Labour's heavy losses last week feel for some on the left like sorrow, and for others there is rejoicing. The political class is deeply rattled. Accusations are flying around. Leadership challenges are now very much more than just whispers. Uncertainty hangs in the air across the country, but many of us feel the country is in labour. The contractions are painful. The outcome is uncertain, but the promise is unbreakable. Your sorrow will turn into joy. Not the fleeting joy of another spin cycle or reshuffle, but the deep resurrection joy that cannot be stolen. The joy of a nation that rediscovers its confidence, its cohesion, its willingness to speak truth again. The joy of seeing institutions humbled and renewed. The joy of life breaking through where death has seemed to reign. Think about that image of the woman in labor. No one volunteers for that pain, but the pain has a purpose. It is ordered towards new life. Britain has been in a long season of discomfort, economic squeezes, cultural upheaval, loss of trust in the elites, the sense that the country we've inherited is slipping away. The election results last week are part of those Labour pains, because accountability is painful for those who thought they could ignore the public forever. And out of it will come a renewal. St. Paul stayed 18 months in Corinth because he trusted the Lord's word. We are called to similar perseverance, not to triumphalism, not to gloating over any party's losses, but to faithful, courageous witness. Speak the truth about what works and what doesn't, on immigration, on energy, on education, on family, on freedom. Do it with charity, but without apology. There are many in this land who belong to the Lord, more than enough to turn the tide if we remain steadfast. So let me speak very plainly, because we are a people that values straight talking. The British people have endured years of broken promises, record migration, alongside housing shortages and strained public services, net zero policies driving up bills, a sense that our culture, history, and identity are constantly put on trial, whilst newcomers are welcomed and celebrated. Last week, many across this great nation have finally said, enough. My brothers, my sisters, that is not hatred. That is love of country. That is the normal instinct of a healthy people. The church should never baptize any political party, but the church does insist on truth, on justice, on the dignity of the human person, on the common good, and on the right ordering of society. When governments forget that they exist to serve the people rather than lecture and abuse them, the people have every right, indeed, it is a duty to remind them of their responsibility. And so, as we head into the week ahead, and whatever political turbulence we will see that week bring, take heart from today's readings. Do not be afraid. Go on speaking. My brothers, my sisters, the Lord is with you. There are many of his people still in this country. Your sorrow, our national labor pains, will one day give way to joy. And that joy, when it comes, no one will be able to take from us. Speak boldly. Love our country. Trust in the God who raises the dead. The best of Britain is not behind us. If we have courage, it yet lies ahead for a people that simply say, Lord, we give you our lives, and we give you this nation. Amen.
Amen, indeed. Brilliant. Fantastic. Very rousing speech, sermon. Couple of comments to do. Thus you will tread the way of good people, persisting in the paths of the upright. That's Proverbs 2:20 to 2:22. There are some wonderful pieces of advice in the book, aren't there? The good book, as they call it. And you're such a great orator. It's wonderful to meet you. It's great to have you in the studio. Are you here all weekend? Are you going back on Sunday? Or?
I will be leaving Saturday night, so I'm back in Wales. Every Sunday we do an online service at about 4 or 5. So this week I'm going to...
So it's a bit of a flying visit then?
Yeah. I'm in today to be with your good self. I'm deeply honoured. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. My pleasure.
A couple of meetings for the rest of the day, then my speech tomorrow, and as soon as the march is finished, I'll be looking for the car and heading back to Wales.
How do you make that plan? Do you sort of park it somewhere where you get a train to it or something?
No, I'm actually, because I've done it so many times now, there's a place just off Savile Road that I park the car and I get a good discount.
Oh, good.
So it's cheaper.
It's good to know these little tricks.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like I had a friend who lived in somewhere like Maidenhead, and he used to come to work in London every day, and he would park his car somewhere in West London, and then just jump on the district line and come to work.
Well, it benefits me as well.
Easier to get out that way as well.
Yeah, I've got to go pick a pair of shoes up because they're in Savile Row having a repair.
Very nice. Wow. So business must be good then. You're buying shoes in Savile Row.
They were a gift, and the repair was a gift. So,
excellent.
I bought them. To say that I've looked after them, they were given to me for my 18th birthday.
Wow.
So my shoes are 31 years
Amazing.
old. And they're just having a good touch-up. And
terrific.
And I have to say, before I go, your studio is fantastic.
Isn't it great?
And for those of you that can't see, I haven't seen a rug this good looking since I met Bruce Forsyth.
This was all put together lovingly by Pooch, who's a man of many talents.
Well, he's done a fantastic
He has.
job. It's better than my studio.
It's absolutely lovely. Well, listen.
Should we keep this here whilst
Yeah, would you like to stay for a little while?
More than happy
We're about
to,
to talk
There's an earpiece there.
We're about to talk to Ben Habib, who I think is also here. Are we doing news first?
No, let's go straight to bed.
Straight to Ben. Ben, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very good to see you. Very well indeed. We just had a very rousing sermon there from the bishop, who's our official bishop.
I
think it's the only show that has an official bishop. I'm pretty sure. So
An
we're
alternative bishop, a far-right alt bishop.
I thought we were friends,
Yes,
Ben.
I know.
We are friends. That's a compliment.
Well, this is the thing that people don't get. You know, those of us who are accused of being far right take it as a kind of badge of honour now, because it's so ridiculous to be used as a slur against anyone who doesn't like the Labour Party. You know, that you're suddenly branded with this terrible, insult. I kind of embrace it and go, yeah, all right then, okay. What else you got?
And I think the more serious point, back when I was joking about alt bishop, I mean, even the church has effectively forgotten what being Christian is all about. And it's brilliant to have someone like Kai reminding people of the actual teachings and what it's all about.
Yes.
If you were to listen to Welby, his idea of Christianity is really a very politicized version of it. No borders, no United Kingdom, no Church of England. All of humanity is equal. Forget about our great Christian past and all the missionaries that went abroad, sacrificed their lives, got any number of illnesses, spreading the good word. Forget about all of that. Just sacrifice the Church of England on the altar of extreme left ideologies. That's where the church has gone, Kai. I mean, tell me if you disagree.
Oh no, Ben, you and I 100% agree on that one. Unfortunately, it's been heading that way since the invocation of the General Synod, which opened the door to all this woke ideology. The fact that bishops are no longer in charge of the church is absolutely disgusting, and then furthered by the likes of, Carey, Rowan Williams, Welby, and now Mullally with their woke agenda.
Yes,
awful. So it's brilliant to have you. Brilliant to have you.
It's great,
Bishop.
Yes, I mean, although I think even his powers, Bishop Dewar's powers, may not be enough to rescue this government from hell or wherever it is they're going. Because
well, I hope he's not trying to rescue them from hell. I hope he's encouraging the process.
Yes, definitely some fire and brimstone required. But I mean, what an absolute shambles we witnessed this week. I mean, every week I come in on a Monday morning and think it can't possibly be worse than last week, and then it always is.
I know.
From yesterday's kind of events where, as I've described it, Wes Streeting kind of started shot the firing pistol into his own head, and kind of basically disappeared up his own backside before he'd even announced his candidacy, and then he's sort of yesterday's man already, just yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's just brilliant, isn't it? He resigned and all that fanfare and then didn't have the support.
No.
And, I was with Kathy Gingle yesterday. You might know Kathy. She runs Conservative Woman, and she was saying to me that actually, Ben, the Labour Party is not very good at wielding the knife when it needs to. The Tories are brilliant.
Yeah.
Perhaps they wield the knife too frequently, and they end up with an ever-decreasing circle of stupidity. But the Labour Party can't wield it. Even though the process of replacing the leader is actually simpler, all they need to do is get 20% of the parliamentary party supporting them, I think is the hurdle. And then they go straight to the membership. It's not like the Conservative Party where it's all done, behind closed doors, the 1922 committee holding, making sure that the failed prime minister goes and so on. But the Labour Party can't do it. So in a way, Mike, I'm delighted that they can't do it, because however awful Starmer is, and we cannot overstate how awful he is, what comes as his replacement is almost certainly going to be worse. I mean, look at the options. Streeting, he couldn't even resign properly.
Yeah.
Angela Rayner, who people say is working class, I say she's part of the dependency class. She's never done a hard day's work in her life. We've got Ed Miliband, who's absolutely intent on destroying this country's ability to source cost-effective, sustainable energy. You just look across the entire front benches. There's literally no, and it means the country's in trouble.
Yeah, well, we said this morning that they've got 400 odd MPs and they couldn't find one of them that they want to replace Starmer with, so they had to go and find Andy Burnham, who's so thick he's actually decided to run in a place where he's more likely to get beaten by reform, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andy Burnham, let's not forget Andy Burnham. You know, he's quite plausible, isn't he, Mike? He delivers a good speech. He's considered. He looks the part, but he is squarely a Blairite.
Yes.
He is part of the Blair project that did so much damage to this country. He would be another disaster. He would be another disaster.
Totally.
Actually, I look at Parliament and I just despair. How did our elected representatives become so dumbed down, so incapable? You look back at the 1980s, and people may have disagreed with the policies of Labour or the policies of Margaret Thatcher and her government and the Conservative Party, but the quality of parliamentarian back then was a different league.
Yeah.
They all understood the issues. They could all debate the issues. They could explain the issues to the electorate. And this lot haven't got a blooming clue.
No. Well, I was saying to Kai earlier, you know, we've got this guy, James Murray, who was once a councillor in somewhere like Ealing, who then traversed his way across to the centre of town and got a job with Sadiq Khan's housing department. And he's now running the NHS, for heaven's sake, the third biggest organisation in the world. He doesn't know anything about medicine. He's never had any clue about running anything really bigger than a local council department. And this is where we are.
It's very, very sad. And, you know, the road to redemption, using biblical language as I should this morning, the road to redemption is multifaceted. It's not just about having the right policies, the right regulations, and setting the path. We do need a complete change of guard, both in Parliament as well as in the civil service. There's got to be a root and branch reform of the people who are meant to be governing this country and a restoration of our constitution. And it has to all happen at the same time. It is a mammoth task that any pro-British caring government is going to have.
Yeah. I mean, should we not have some kind of constitutional imperative that if you do change the Prime Minister, you must have another general election?
Well, you would have thought so. I know that they say we don't have an American system. It's not presidential. If the top man goes, it wasn't him that you elected the party, and they can choose amongst themselves who the leader should be. But the reality is that most people on the street vote for who's standing for Prime Minister, don't they? You know, in a general election, you look at the top guy and you go, well, I'm going to back him.
Although I think in Starmer's case, it was just anybody who wasn't a Tory could have got in. I mean, they could have put Basil Brush up as the leader, and Labour would have still got in, because I think everybody just wanted something different, and that was the only real alternative to the Tories, who were, let's face it, pretty useless.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, of course, because Labour got fewer votes in 2024 than they did in 2019, and got a thumping majority. And that actually, I think, is the other aspect of the damage done to our democracy. Complete voter apathy, and it's too simple to blame the voter. The reason the voter is apathetic is because they have repeatedly come out. They've repeatedly come out and expressed their wishes on how they want the country to be governed, and repeatedly the government of the day has done the opposite of what they promised and what the people wanted. And the voters are now at a point where they say, "Well, a pox on all your houses." You know, and that's why the two-party system is broken. That's why we've got a multifaceted party system. And in a sense, that's good. I think it's perhaps the beginning. Let's hope it is the beginning of this country finding its route back to stability and, security.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did you make of the rout of Labour at the weekend? Well, I guess we'd call it out the weekend, starting on Thursday with the vote and then the counts. I mean, it seems to me, anyway, that I was asked this question last week, and I said I think Keir Starmer's legacy may well be that he killed off the Labour Party, because this could be the end for them.
Yeah, and it's exactly the same thing that happened to the Conservative Party, isn't it? And it comes back to what I've just been saying, I think, Mike, that the governments of the day over the last 15, 20 years have repeatedly done the opposite of what the voters want. And so any government that practices a form of governance and policies and prosecutes an ideology which is damaging to the people's interests is going to end up very, very unpopular. That's what Boris Johnson did. He promised to get Brexit done. Actually, we all know he didn't. He made a hash of the whole thing. He And of course, he did have COVID, but the policies, used in COVID were extremely draconian, again, against the British people's interests. And he delivered the Conservative Party from an 80-seat majority into virtual oblivion. And you might recall at the beginning of his tenure, people said this is going to be a minimum tenure Johnson government because of the thumping majority he got. Do you remember that? And within 2 or 3 years, it was all over. And the same has happened to Labour. And it'll keep happening to every single government that gets elected until they recognise that they're meant to be representing the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland and its people. And they've got to start doing for the people what the people need, what the people want. And only then will their popularity be restored. Instead of having a leadership election, what the Labour Party should be doing is tearing up its manifesto, tearing up its political philosophy, and rewriting it in a way that actually protects and promotes and secures the United Kingdom.
Yeah. Very well said. That's another sermon we could have on a Sunday. Maybe if the bishop ever takes a weekend off, you can come in and put your dog collar on and come and do one for us here. Ben, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Ben Habib there giving us the benefit of his thoughts. Now, I've got a treat for you now because I think Intel Lady might be here. Have you got that little clip that we had of Angela Rayner, of her doing Angela Rayner? Yeah. Should we have a quick look at this? I don't know if you know Intel Lady, do you?
I've seen her, yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. She was on our live.
Hiya. It's former Deputy Prime Minister, proud Northerner from a working class background, basic instinct enthusiast, and now highly successful podcaster and part-time MP, Angela Rayner. And welcome to another no-brainer with Angela Rayner. Well, I am not going to sugarcoat this. We can't. We've had a bad week. It's been a bad result in the local elections, and in particular for my area, which is Tameside. It's Tameside, and that's been very difficult for us because it's now, unbelievably, after almost 50 years of being under Labour control, it's gone to the far right adjacent. I am staggered. I don't know how this has happened. I do not.
I don't know how this has happened. She's brilliant. She is, of course, the one and only Intel Lady. Jen, a very good morning to you. Oh, it's Ange again. Ange is here in person. Hello.
I'm not having this. I'm not having this mockery. It's absolutely ridiculous, Mike, for goodness sake.
It's been a tough week, though. How have you been coping?
It's been very tough for me because, as you know, when it made headline news, I have given up vaping, which of course was the most important thing to report about me.
Yes.
But to be honest, I've just had to go back on the fags because what's the point? It's too
very
stressful, Mike.
Very nerve-wracking. There's a very interesting headline. I don't know if you've seen it today in the Daily Mail. It says, everyone in Labour admires Angela and what she's achieved, but that doesn't mean you want her making the big decisions at 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was talking to my producer. Well, my producer Pooch and I were wondering what sort of things you'd be getting up to at 3 a.m. in the morning, to be honest, Ange.
I don't think it's anybody's business what I get up to at 3 a.m. in the morning, to be honest with you. But, I mean, what line of questioning is that? Very unprofessional, Mike. Very disappointing.
Well, just people like to know what you think because, you know, we're presented with a situation where the Labour government wants to get rid of your mate Keir Starmer, right? And a lot of people say, surely this is the time for a woman to be in charge. And you're the only woman that they've got. Because they don't like Bridget Phillipson, do they?
Well, I mean, she can be a little bit stiff and stuffy sometimes. But to be honest, my money is on our Andy. I've done a little bit of a deal with our Andy, and I'm just waiting for him to go over the top to get his win. And then I need to be back in that deputy position again because I like the power. I like the power that came with it, Mike, because occasionally when our Keir was off hiding somewhere in the world and talking to world leaders about things that aren't as important as whatever's going on here, I got to take the reins at PMQs and I got to gob off at the Tories, which is a very satisfying thing to do on a Wednesday. I'll tell you that.
It's very good. Now, the other big news this week, though, was, of course, that HMRC miraculously found time to clear you of any wrongdoing in the stamp duty situation, right? But you had to pay up. You had to give him 40,000 quid. Where'd you get it from?
It's absolutely none of your business where I got my fortune from. But I mean, I am writing the book. I've written a book. Well, someone else has written it. I just told them what to say. So I'm going to get a load of money from that. I'm doing a brilliant speaking engagement at Property Mart 1 in June. So everybody is buying tickets to hear me talk about the property market, because I know a lot about building houses and renting them and all that sort of thing, and buying them as well. So there you are. I've got an income, and I'm a part-time MP. So there's a lot of money coming in, Mike.
Yeah. When's the book coming out? Because I'm looking forward to getting a free copy.
It's coming out later in the year. We're just doing a few finishing touches, but it should be out hopefully for Christmas. Then I can cash in on that.
And how's the boyfriend situation?
It's none of your business, Mike. Keep him out of it.
Yeah, but he's now a lobbyist, isn't he? And I'm told that he gets access, your boyfriend, to senior government ministers when he wants to talk to them about anything.
Look, who my boyfriend has access to is absolutely none of your concern, Mike, to be perfectly honest. And everything's all above board anyway, so you don't need to be asking questions and nosying, thinking in. I have to say, I've noticed that you've got a man of the cloth works to you there, Mike. Yeah, yes. I see that.
He's our official bishop. Is Bishop Kai Dewar. Do you want to say hello to Ange?
Well, Ms. Rayner, it's lovely to speak to you this morning as we draw the week to a conclusion. And thank you for living up to your moniker of being the Ginger Whinger.
Well, all right, yeah. You've got a gob on you as well. I see. I think we need to change your name to the Gob of God. I think that might suit you better.
Are you a woman of the cloth? You go to church anytime? You ever been there?
I go into a lot of religious buildings. That is true. I've done a lot of meetings in religious buildings. Might have gone into a church at some point. I don't really remember. To be
There's that famous picture of you in the mosque, isn't there, with all the men, all the Muslim men.
That was a very relaxing meeting. I did enjoy that. It was I felt very, very at home there.
Did you? Yeah. So do you reckon Andy Burnham's going to win in this by-election then? Because people say to me that all around Manchester, right, including Tameside, which is your constituency, it's all gone reform. It's all Nigel Farage territory.
Listen, I have every confidence in our Andy. I think he's going to do it. Whoever the reformers put up, he's going to beat him hands down. I am not worried about this. And I'm not worried about our Wes either. Not at all worried about I think he's made a bit. I mean, he's got a lot of spunk as our Wes. I think we can all agree. He's got a lot of spunk. But he's not going to get anywhere with this. He's shot himself in the foot. Time.
Well, he shot himself in the head, I think, because as soon as he announced his candidacy, then he didn't have enough supporters, did he?
Well, he's not that popular as our West, to be honest. He's all mouth and no trousers, so
that's the trouble.
Nobody's interested. Yeah,
that's the trouble.
That's got him into a lot of trouble in the past as well.
Well, yeah, him and his mate Peter. That's what we call him, isn't it, Peter? What about James? Picture of James O'Brien over his shoulder there. Have you seen him lately?
He is begging me for an interview. He does want me to nip into the studio and spend a bit of time with him. He's been hanging out with our Lewis Goodall quite a lot, going to therapy sessions together because they're really stressed out with all of the political stuff that's going on. They've been going to laughter therapy, it's called, and they've got a picture of Kemi Badenoch that James O'Brien likes to point and laugh at, which apparently is definitely not racist because she's on the right, so it doesn't count.
I'm sorry, sir. I have the last question for you. Frank has just sent us a note there. I don't know if you saw it on the screen. I bet she's had the odd missionary position, it says. I don't know what that means.
I'm not going to respond to disgusting misogyny. Absolutely disgusting. This is the problem that we have got on the far right adjacent at the moment. It's you lot of disgusting, misogynistic, making absolutely foul references. So absolutely, this is why we need more women in politics. Thank goodness we've got some decent women on that front bench. Might all have the same haircut, but they know what they're doing.
Brilliant. Intel lady, Ange, thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend. Good to see you. I'll see you down at the Unite the Kingdom march. Got the tenants super.
I'm getting my tins in now.
Smoking and drinking, that's what we want. See you, darling. Take it easy. She's fantastic, isn't she?
She's superb.
She really is.
Superb.
I forgot to ask you one question, Kai, before we draw all this to a close. Wales, of course, a massive result for reform in Wales, but a terrible result for the Labour Party. Lost it for the first time.
It's a disaster for Labour to have been in control in Wales for all intents and purposes the last century.
Yeah.
To now be the fourth party in the same parliament.
Well, this is what I mean by Keir Starmer kind of killing off the party, because that's kind of what he's done.
I have to be honest, that result last week did manage to do something for Labour that only that election result and a bridge in Haverfordwest had done, and that was to get the First Minister back in her constituency.
Right.
Because we haven't seen her for Lord knows how long.
Well, you're not going to see her much now,
and
are
now
you?
she's lost her seat. But, I mean, it shows how much the country has turned, because the birthplace of Labour has now rejected Labour unanimously as a party. All of the Labour strongholds have swung to reform. And I don't think that's a vote that's been lent. I think that's a vote that's given in perpetuity now.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible. Who would have guessed it? Well, listen, it's been an incredible week, Pooch, hasn't it? Have we got Pooch's Pooch?
Yeah, so let's do Pooch's.
Let's do Pooch's Pooch. Yeah, this is our little.
I've got two little ones myself, and watching Pooch's Pooch is hysterical.
Pooch's Pooch is brilliant.
I was crying last week.
Yeah. Who have we got today? That's brilliant. Beautiful dog.
Couple of super chats, Mike.
Couple of super chats to end with. This one from Judas Goat. What a powerful voice and a great sermon. May God bless the UK and light a great and righteous fire in you all. We are with you from the USA. Pray for us as we pray for you. Thank you. We've got quite a lot of listeners in America, actually, who are very keen on what we do.
I've got friends that watch you on a daily basis.
Really?
In
the States, great. Laura Jane, Pooch is a legend. He is, indeed. He's going to be away next week, aren't you? He's going on holiday, unbelievably. Richard says this: if the Bish is in Haverfordwest on the 4th of June, I'll be there having a timing belt changed. Sorry?
Timing belt.
Okay. Changed. It's a timing belt changed. Sorry, I'm seeing a comma in the wrong place. Be great to meet him. Brilliant as always.
I'll
you probably know how to change a timing belt, which obviously I don't, because I can't even read it. This one from Laura Jane as well. As someone who works in the NHS, I think all these diversity, inclusivity and equality jobs are stupid, useless, pointless and an awful waste of money. Well, of course they are. It's absolutely ridiculous. Nobody wants them. And finally, Jeff. As an American, I'm very far down the line of succession. However, when I become King of England, I'm going to reinstate the hereditary peers. Well, you might as well, you know.
That's my argument. I've been saying this, that the quickest way to bring parliamentary reform for any government that's really got the, what's the term I like to use? Testicular fortitude, because I'm a little bit more polite than Pooch. Is to reinstate do away with the life peers, put the hereditary peers back. Because the way Blair got rid of them and now Starmer got rid of the last one, they'll hold every government to the strictest
Of course they will. And there's too many people in the House of Lords anyway. I mean, they should stop putting people in there until a bunch of them have died off effectively, because there's way too many, and every year it gets added to.
But that was Starmer's thing when the Tories were apparently, it's only cronyism. And the moment he's got control of government, they're putting people in the House of Lords to stack it in their favour.
Well, everything he said he was going to bring to an end. Cronyism, transparency was going to be the thing that they were going to have. You know, they were going to stop with the the sleaze and the bribery and all the freebies and all the rest of it. It's absolutely shocking what they've done.
He's the living epitome of that age-old adage, isn't he? How do you know when a politician's lying? Their lips are moving.
Their lips are moving, exactly right. Absolutely right. But who knows what the future will hold? Who knows what next week will hold? Pooch is going to be away. I'll be here. Charlotte will be in the house as well. Kai Dewar, thank you very much indeed. Great to meet you. Thank you to all of you for listening. Great guests today as well. Absolutely brilliant show. Week of shows, actually. It's been bigger numbers than ever before. Over 100,000 a day watching us, which is fantastic. And so let's see what happens. Tonight, Plank of the Week at 7 p.m. And then, of course, we've got Plonk of the Week tomorrow night at 7 p.m. as well. So look out for two of those. Both of them very funny shows. Kezia Noble joins us for both of them as well. So have a great weekend. If you're going to the United Kingdom March, have a great time and see and meet lots and lots of really, really interesting people, as you will. And have a lovely time. We'll see you on Monday, 7 o'clock.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.